Ladies and gentlemen, if you're relatively new to the channel, you may not have known that I covered every season of Dexter and reviewed all of them. I started watching this show in January of this year, so 2025, and I caught all up in 30 days. I watched the entire show for the first time in literally 30 days. By the end, I was exhausted. So I wanted to make sure that you guys caught all of my reviews in one long video. So this is a very long video of every review I ever posted to the channel. One of the things that I think is pretty interesting just from a me side of the coin is it's always interesting to go back and watch progression from the beginning of time. So January 2025, I was already 2 years into YouTube videos, and it's pretty crazy to see where I came just with like camera work, color grading, and stuff like that along the way. Some of the reviews have really poor color grading when I went back and looked at these, but I think that's a little interesting tidbit. So maybe if you have a creative eye, pay attention to that, or not, you could just watch it and enjoy it for Dexter. But yeah, so without further ado, I'm making chapter markers for each season. You could kick back, relax, and check out my overall feelings about every season of Dexter, including New Blood and Resurrection, as well as Original Sin. So by all means, let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, I just returned from a trip to Las Vegas, and on the flight home, I spent the entire 4.5 hours watching and finishing Dexter Season 1, and I have a lot of thoughts. This show is one that came highly recommended, and it's one that I always kind of had my eyes on out of genuinely being curious for what this show was. I always knew that it was about a guy who kills bad people, but I didn't know anything else. I never saw anything on social media. I never saw anything anywhere. I've officially somehow managed to avoid any spoilers for the show. The only thing I know is that Dexter Resurrection exists, so in some way, shape, or form, Dexter's still alive by the end of this season, or at least he's, like, came back from the dead. I don't know. I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying my speculation is somehow he, like, survived something. That's my thought. I have no idea. I've heard the ending is terrible. That's the only other thing I know. Whatever. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit too much. I wanted to talk about my thoughts of Season 1 overall, because now that I've gotten to see a fair chunk of the show, especially the parts of it that people really treasure, which is Seasons 1 through 4 or 5, seemingly, I think I have a good enough idea of what this show is now to give an accurate opinion on it. And in a simple way, I think this was a phenomenal season of TV. I really did enjoy it, and it was very hard for me to stop watching at episode, I think it was 12, which is the final episode of Season 1, when I did. Like, as soon as I got back to my apartment, I'll put it this way. I got off the flight yesterday at midnight, not noon. Got off the flight at midnight, and I got back to my apartment at like 1 o'clock. I was up till 3 watching episodes 1 and 2 of Season 2, just because there was no way on earth I was going to be able to, like, I had to see what happened next, which I'm glad that I didn't have to wait like some people have to wait the whole amount of time until the next season airs or whatever. I'm just glad, and I think that's the consolation of this. This is just a very solid show. I like all of the characters, and I like what they did with a lot of them here. But I really obviously like Dexter. I like that he has this whole persona of, he says he has no emotions, but he clearly does, like, in some way, shape, or form. He just kind of thinks he doesn't, but obviously he's a psycho killer, so he does have emotion, or so, like, he doesn't have, like, regular emotions. I don't know, the whole thing. I'm a big fan of all that. I like what they did, but I also like all the other characters, really, whether it is Rita, whether it is Dokes, whether it is Deb, whether it, like, any of the main people. I really do enjoy them, and so far there hasn't been anyone that I guess I could say that I have a problem with or anything yet. I like the interactions we've got with everyone. I like that you have this thing which you see more of as the season goes on, but where Dokes clearly is aware that Dexter's a psycho in some way, shape, or form. And you have his, relationship with that. Dexter in particular is like, well, Dokes is the only one who sees me for who I am. I like all of that. I thought that was really cool. I like all of the people in the police force. They're a very interesting dynamic, and it has a feeling of a show like a LAPD or something like that. It gives off that vibe for sure, but obviously with a completely different twist, being that Dexter is a killer within the police force and he has to navigate that. But I like all of them. I like what we got with Rita and her husband, who is in jail. Paul came back and all of that stuff. And I liked where all of these storylines ended up going. I really, really liked the ice truck killer story. I thought that was a phenomenal story in general, just to follow and just to see. And that twist at the end of, what was his name? Rudy? I'm looking at a little thing that I have for this. Rudy. I thought he was great, but the twist in particular that he was actually Dexter's brother, and that in some way, shape, or form, Harry lied and held all of this from him, that he has a brother, who his mom was, and all of that stuff. The one thing I didn't get, we'll come back to Rudy in a second, but it's fresh on my mind. The one thing that I didn't really get was that whole subplot this season. There was two subplots that I didn't get, which we'll get into in a minute. They're my only real flaws of the season, but one of them in particular was Dexter's real dad. Maybe I missed this detail, but I was pretty locked in on the flight for that whole entire story. I watched like 7 episodes on the plane. I was pretty locked in for this season. Maybe I'm forgetting or didn't notice, but what was the point, or what was the answer to his dad? Like, I didn't really understand that. Maybe we're going to uncover it more, but I feel like it was kind of all over the place. Like, Dexter has this biological dad outside of Henry. I obviously get that. I know Harry, not Henry. Harry adopted him. I get that, especially after all of that thing that happened with the massacre at the shipyard. But the dad didn't go anywhere. Am I alone? I didn't understand that really at all, but whatever. I mean, I guess it's a small detail, but we did spend like 2 episodes focusing on Dexter's biological dad. And I don't know what that served, because I don't know what answers we really got other than, oh, Harry kept stuff from me. And yeah, sure, that's character development for Dexter. Absolutely. I understand that element of it. I just don't. I feel like it was just like, oh, let's throw in this little plot here, and then it just kind of like forgot about it. I feel like there was a lot of that this season with other things, and that's, again, where my complaint comes from. It was that with the dad story. Then it was Dokes with the whole, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I was laser focused, but maybe not. I don't know. It was a long weekend. I got like 3 hours of sleep every night, so it could have something to do with that. But the other thing is the Dokes thing, where he shot a guy, and then I'm forgetting the other guy's name who was with him in the car. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he saw that the 9mm shot first, and then the 34mm or 30, whatever it is. But that also kind of like went nowhere. Like, what was that? Are we going to get more of that? What happened there? Like, that's where I think this show for me has fallen off a little bit. I thought season 1 was a phenomenal season of TV, but there's like a couple elements of subplots within this show that, 1, I don't really care for, and 2, I don't think have gotten any resolutions. They just seem to have existed and then just faded away. I could be wrong. I could come back to them. Maybe I missed a detail. I'm really not sure, but those were like stupid. I don't know how else to describe it. I just, that those were stupid to me. Realistically speaking, there was that. But we're going to come back to Rudy a little bit, because I loved that story. And I know his name's not really Rudy. His name's whatever. I don't know his name. I don't know. But regardless, I loved what we got. I loved this idea that you have this psycho killer in Dexter who also is idolizing other killers, and they have this like secret bond because, and Dexter said it in the show already, but these are like his colleagues, but obviously they don't have like oh, my screensaver just changed, whatever. They don't have like meetings or anything that they could go to discuss their work or anything like that. They obviously operate in secret. So Dexter following this guy, or at least trying to follow this guy who's following him because they're in the same trade and they're just trying to like talk to one another, essentially, was a really interesting story. And then when it came to fruition, when we discovered as an audience that Rudy was dating Deb, was just crazy. It was a really, really solid reveal. And yes, I mean, the only way I could describe it is once it happened, I was like, how did I not think of this sooner? But also, I think that's what makes a good twist, because it was right in front of us the entire time and I didn't see it. And that's what I liked about the writing of season 1 of Dexter in general. A lot of the things this season were right in front of our faces, but we just didn't see it until it laid out. Rudy was a phenomenal example of that. It was an example of a seemingly simple twist done really, really well. And I liked where it brought the story. The only thing I didn't really understand with that is, why did Rudy insist on Dexter killing Deb? Like, I get it. On one hand, he's a psycho and all of that stuff. I do understand that. But it just didn't really make sense to me. It was kind of stupid. And also Dexter's replies to him were kind of stupid to me too. Dexter was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, he didn't talk to him. This is his brother. And I know they don't know each other. And I know obviously Rudy's a psychopath. I get that. But in the same vein, Dexter could have easily, I know he's like really awkward, but he could have easily been like, dude, I'm not killing my sister. Yes, you're my brother, but I'm not killing my sister. Anyone else, we could do this together. Like, not that Dexter would, because he has a code, but still. That's another thing, by the way, that I didn't talk about yet in this video, is the code. I love that. I think it's really, really solid. I like that story. I like that Harry, in general, kind of guided Dexter throughout his whole life to channel that emotions into doing good with your killing instincts. I don't know. There's just a lot here that I liked. I'm trying to think, because a couple of you guys have asked me how I feel about the show and whether I think this is like one of the best shows ever or anything like that. I'll be honest, I think it's too soon to tell. I don't know. But if I'm going to do a one bite, everyone knows the rules, like Dave Portnoy, and give my honest thoughts on the show, I think it's a very good show. I'm enjoying watching it a lot, but it doesn't have, so far, for me, the same exact magic that some of the greats do. I think it's in a very similar category, though, so far. I would say, like, this is one of the best first seasons of TV I've watched, but I'm not right now getting that same spark that I've gotten for other shows in their first seasons, like The Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, even From in some ways. Shows like that, Succession. I don't know. I'm not saying I dislike it, because that is not at all the case. I don't. I thought this was a phenomenal season of TV, but I think it's too soon to exactly tell my overall feelings on the show. I'd say it's high up there, but I don't know where it ranks yet. And I think I made myself clear with how I feel about it so far. Obviously, I'm going to continue to watch. I'm binging the fuck out of the show right now. I'm enjoying every minute of it. That's, again, to say I do really like it. I just don't think it's like the greatest yet. It may change. Obviously, I'm still only 1 season and 2 episodes into the show. So we'll see about that. But you could definitely expect reviews of the shows on this channel. I mean, the seasons on this channel. Someone brought up a good point, and I think it would be a good idea. So let me know if you want to see it. I'm thinking about doing reaction episodes to the big episodes. Obviously, I don't know what they are. I know nothing about the show. I don't know any of the major ones. But if you want to let me know episodes in the comments that I should watch and do maybe like a reaction to instead of just doing the season reviews, definitely let me know. Do not give me spoilers for what happens in those episodes, but give a suggestion and let me know if it's one that you think I should react to because there's a big moment that happens or something like that. I would love to do that. I would have loved to have gotten my reaction for the Rudy reveal, things like that, but whatever. All that to say, let's start the conversation down there. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Holy shit. I mean, oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter season 2. I started watching it on this Tuesday, and I just finished. It's Thursday. 12 episodes, ran right through them. It was so good. It was I'm not even kidding about this, guys. I'm not just saying this for the sake of the video. This season of Dexter was, I think it was way better than season 1. And just in general, it was a masterclass in writing on every front. I can't believe I got through it that quickly, and I genuinely do think it's for good reason. Everything worked this season. This really, really got me hooked on Dexter. I'm not even kidding. Everything was just great here, from Lila to the dynamic with Rita to I almost said jokes, to Dokes, all of them. The story that they crafted this season, especially with, like, you have Frank Lundy in the picture and all of that, it was just so freaking good. Everything about it was solid. All of the events that unfolded this season just panned out so brilliantly, and I loved it way more than I liked season 1. Because, at least with season 1, there was a couple things, or I wouldn't say at least, but there was a couple things in season 1 that left me kind of feeling like, it's alright, but there's this problem, and this problem. This season didn't have anything like that for me. I loved what they did. I like how in the beginning, or in the end of season 1, they set up season 2 to be a story focus on Dokes kind of going after Dexter. And that's essentially what this season was. But the B plot to the season was Lila, because shortly into the season, Rita discovers that Dexter has an addiction or something like that. I forget the exact wording of how that went down, but she makes Dexter go to recovery, AA or whatever it is. And there Dexter meets Lila, and Lila starts out to be this perfect sponsor for Dexter, but clearly you could tell they have some sexual tension, that they're into each other and all of that stuff. But it unfolds in a way that feels extremely natural. We watch Dexter start to grow a bond with this lady, and then because of that, they eventually develop into something more than just sponsors. They start literally fucking, and it just played off so naturally. And of course, as a viewer, I was rooting for them to get together. Not that I disliked Rita or anything, but I thought their chemistry and their bond was just really cool. And as someone who knows nothing about Dexter, obviously, seeing that unfold, I'm like, damn, this is going to be some Bonnie and Clyde shit. Like, clearly Lila is crazy, obviously, but she's also electric, and their personalities just like pair well together. So obviously I was very excited to see that all unfold. And just like the best writing in TV history, it unfolded I should say divulged into something so sinister, and it felt so natural, that progression, because I really liked Lila in the beginning, but episode by episode, you slowly started to peel back that onion. And by the end of it, obviously, we got what we got. So that Lila B plot was just so solid. The only thing I didn't really care for, which obviously was designed that way, is Rita's mother in the mix. She was very, very, very annoying. But the whole love triangle with Lila, Rita, Dexter, all of that just worked really well. And I'm not one of those people who likes love stories and all that shit, but this was different because it was like some Bonnie and Clyde stuff, like I mentioned. It just worked. It worked so well, and it just naturally progressed in such a good way. By the end of the season, even though I knew she had to go, I didn't really want her to go because I liked the anarchy that she caused the story in a way that I didn't think felt cheesy. Like, okay, imagine if Fear the Walking Dead wrote this plot and they had Lila be a villain. They would have turned her into a Scooby-Doo villain. And quite frankly, I could see how you can make some parallels with that here in Dexter Season 2, but it was just written masterfully so that it felt natural. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel uncomfortable. And it all came together just swimmingly. There's no other way to put it than swimmingly. I don't even know why I'm using that word, but it fits the occasion. My God. Honestly, I love the whole Doke stuff, but this really was just a really solid part of the story. I said there's a B plot. There's also like a C plot to this season because you have Dokes, you have Lila, and you also have the Bay Harbor Killer. I think that's what they called him. Bay Harbor, something like that. The guy, obviously, it was Dexter that they were after. In the beginning of the season, it's established that these divers found bags of bodies, and over time, we realized they were identified to be all the missing bad people that Dexter killed. Obviously, that's what Dokes is going after, but obviously, that's also what the Miami PD is going after. Little do they know it's Dexter, but as the series, or the season goes on, They believe, Miami PD believes that it's Dokes, which I thought felt really natural. And honestly, like if you watch it as a viewer like me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, obviously it's not Dokes. And yeah, there's some people in the story that do also think that it's not Dokes clearly. But it was just told so well. Dexter had a one-up on Dokes the whole time, so it seemed believable. And then on top of that, Dokes himself was just really solid. And by the end of it, even though I didn't really like Dokes in season 1 and 2, I did, but I didn't like him for the good reasons, if that makes any sense. I don't think he was a bad character. I think he was a phenomenal character. But by the end of the season, I was just upset to see him go the way he went. At least he went out like kind of a badass. He went out his character arc was complete by the end of it. And it's unfortunate that by the end of it, Lila is the one that took him out. I thought it was kind of cool in the same vein when Lila took him out, where she essentially was just on Dexter's side and killed him for Dexter. Like, I thought that was all cool, but it was a really interesting just look into the mind of another psychopath. Now, I wonder, and this is something I've been thinking of, before I went into season 2, my concern for Dexter is that each season is kind of going to be like The Walking Dead, where, it's a group of survivors, a group of villains, they take out the villains, then the next group of villains come in, and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I think that's what this show is doing too, in some way. Like, season 1 was Rudy, season 2 was Lila, and I guess Dokes, technically. But it feels right. Like, it doesn't feel bad. I hope that's not what changes when the later seasons happen, because I've said it in every Dexter video I made. I know I'm expecting it to not stay this good. I am. But honestly, you got to acknowledge dynamite when there's dynamite, and this season was just fucking dynamite. Everything about it was just solid. There wasn't one bad element I liked. I liked the internal dialogue we had with Dexter. Obviously, he gives internal dialogue the whole time, but I liked his dialogue about him being caught, the paranoia that came with it, Rita's dynamic, even Rita's mom, even though I hated Rita's mom, blah, 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 Lila, Dokes, even, I guess, Deb, even though I didn't really care for the whole Frank Lundy thing, like, that was fine. It just wasn't my favorite part of the story. And as a matter of fact, every time it cut to the Frank Lundy stuff, I was a little bored, but the whole time I was also on the edge of my seat because I was under the impression that Frank Lundy knew something about Dexter. And it may very well be the case that eventually in time, he comes back into the fold and actually does get Dexter. I could see that happening. I don't know. You know what I couldn't see happening was Mike Ehrmantraut being in this season. I had no idea. I'm forgetting his name off the very top of my head, even though it's literally on the tip of my tongue. His actor was in this season. I could not believe it. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And especially because season 2 of Dexter was around the time-ish where Breaking Bad was premiering, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Mike didn't come into the fold until season 2. I'm pretty sure this season was season like 7 or 8. I'm not too sure, but it was crazy to see him. But overall, the point I'm trying to make, though, that was just a random thing I went off on, but the whole Frank Lundy thing was kind of interesting because it kept you on your toes thinking that he knew something. And like I said, it may very well be that in time that's the case, and that's what we get with him. Like, he might be in the picture. I don't know. I have no idea, but I could see that coming to fruition. I'm really excited to see where this story goes from here because now a lot of the loose ends are seemingly tied up going into season 3. And by the end of season 2, we had Dexter going to Paris and killing Lila, which I thought was a little unfortunate, but in the same vein, I liked it. She obviously got what she deserved. And just in general, I mean, I think it wrapped up just really well. I feel bad for Dokes. I, in a sense, feel bad for Lila, but I don't because she got what she deserved. Rita's back with Dexter, and even though that is a little bit unique in the fact that she just took him back so easily, and even the fact that Dexter didn't say anything to her, like I made a mistake, she brought out like something in me, and I just I had a moment, he didn't do any of those explaining, and just Rita took him back. Honestly, Rita is a weak character, but I don't hate her, at least not yet. She's not a favorite of mine in the show or anything. And I kind of feel in the same way. I feel the same with Deb. Like, Deb is in that same category. I don't dislike Deb, but I don't really like Deb either. I like the dynamic that Dexter has with Rita for sure, and the kids and all of that. I'm just not that fond of Rita, and I feel the same sort of way about Deb, but Deb's a little better to me, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I'm just brain dumping because I literally just finished watching the final episode, episode 12 of season 2 just now. And I wish this was an episode I reacted to, but frankly, I was just so hooked on watching this show that I didn't want to wait to do that. I'm not even kidding. I was like, I need to see this next episode. I wasn't near a camera, so I just had to watch it. I just had to do it. Sorry, guys. I am going to try. If you have recommendations for further episodes in season 3 and beyond that you want me to react to, I will try to do it. Don't hold me to it for sure. Or if anything, if I don't do a live reaction, I'll just record the episode reaction after the fact. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but definitely let me know those episodes that you want me to do separate videos on down below. I fucking loved season 2. I thought it was incredible, and I can't wait to watch more Dexter. So I'm literally going to go do that right now, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter Season 3, and I have some thoughts because these last 2 seasons that I've seen were actually magnificent. And I'm not saying that Dexter Season 3 was bad, because I don't think it was. I just didn't really like it. I'm not gonna lie, like, I found it kind of boring. It was still entertaining enough for me to actually watch the entire season and have a lot of thoughts on it. I'm still gonna continue to watch the show, but honestly, if I had to pick one, this is definitely my least favorite of the 3 seasons that I've seen. I mean, I feel like in retrospect, knowing what we know by the end of the season, this is one I'd actually really like to go back and rewatch, because I do think my opinion will change at time. But as of me recording this, today is February 4th, I was kind of bored by it. All the storylines weren't really anything special to me. The whole Miguel storyline, while it had its cool moments, especially towards the end of that story, I just didn't really think it was anything that caught my attention. And I even felt the same with all of the other stuff that went on this season. Like the side guy who also joined, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting the name, and I hate to start off with forgetting someone's name, but I thought the character was forgettable in and of himself. The guy who was partners with Deb this entire season, who the Asian lady was kind of trying to go after, I forget their names, but it was really forgettable to me, and it really didn't go anywhere. I kind of had the feeling the entire season, and we're going to get to a lot of stuff, but I had the feeling the entire season that he was going to turn out to be the guy who was skinning people alive and stuff like that, but it just wasn't, and it didn't go anywhere except for the fact that that guy got his partner previously shot in the past and things like that, but it really didn't do much. Like, it didn't have anywhere to go. And that was just boring to me. And then also the stuff with Anton this season was pretty boring to me and hard to follow, especially in the first few episodes of the season. It picked up later on, especially when we got Detective Morgan at the end, and then it was the whole conflict of interest stuff, and she ended up going back to Anton, stuff like that. That was cool. But there wasn't really much there, and I really wanted to enjoy this Miguel storyline in general, but I just didn't really have... There wasn't much there. I guess you could say, in general, it was pretty cool to see Dexter have a best friend, despite it feeling, over the span of the entire 12 episodes, a little too quick for me to believe that they were best friends or anything like that. And also, it was just kind of weird for me to believe in general that Dexter would form this kind of bond with anyone and let it get this far. And I understand that this was the theme of the entire season. The fact that Dexter found someone he could relate to and be friends with and all of that stuff. And they share that mutual interest of killing people, for lack of a better word. I thought the themes there were cool and interesting to explore, but the execution was just boring to me. And I say execution with puns intended, because this show is about executing. That was really stupid. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I found it a little... there wasn't much there. Rita's and Dexter's wedding was okay. Like, it wasn't really anything crazy. I will say, even though I said it was boring and all of that stuff, Dexter and Miguel's relationship was definitely the highlight of this season, even though it wasn't anything for me, write home about. It was very interesting to see, like I said, Dexter going into this state where he's actually becoming friends with someone and kind of has an accomplice along his journey, but that accomplice becomes really crazy and unhinged and does pretty terrible things, as we come to find out. He kills the lawyer, whose name is escaping me as well. Again, sorry for that. But he kills the lawyer. He tries to kill the lieutenant as well. And all of that stuff happens, and it's sure interesting because obviously if Miguel went down, that would mean, in theory, that Dexter would have to go down. I just didn't really think there was much there to, I don't know, talk about, to be honest. Like, that's kind of it. I really liked a lot of the flashbacks we got, and I think one of the other highlights this season was Rebecca's, is that her name? Rebecca's story? Let me pause there real quick because I know I'm getting on the hook for all my name forgetting here. Let me just try to remember real quick.
A few moments later.
Did I say Rebecca? I meant Camilla. Camilla is who I'm talking about. That whole story with Camilla was definitely very interesting. It was cool to see, and it was interesting to explore that Dexter had this sort of really strong bond with Camilla, and it ended with him making a morally vague, I guess you should say, decision on what to do with her, but he of course ended up sparing her and, you know, taking her out of her pain, which was very interesting to see. That was definitely one of the highlights of this season to me. And even though, again, like I kind of mentioned already, that Rita's and Dexter's wedding kind of felt very quick and a little weird, I actually liked that more than I thought. Rita has so far been a character in Dexter that I haven't really had a strong connection with, to be completely honest with you. But this season, I liked her a little bit more. It felt more real, and I'm glad to see Dexter finally starting to show some form of emotions. It's very interesting to me that we got, even in the last episode, where Dexter was talking to Harry, obviously Ghost Harry, or just his imagination, and he started to cry because Dexter wants to see his kid. I really like to explore that because now we're finally getting some emotions between the character, and it's good to see because obviously, like I mentioned in my season 1 review, even though he says he doesn't, Dexter clearly has emotions. He just doesn't think he does, and he doesn't know how to channel those because he's followed Harry's code this entire time. And I think that's a very interesting topic to explore. And even if it's told through the vessel of characters like Rita, like Miguel, or even in the past seasons, it just works really well when we explore those themes. I think they do such a phenomenal job in this show with character development, and it's something that I feel like is missing from a lot of shows out there. This one, I think, does nail it because I think there's something that you could say about pretty much all of the main cast of this show. They all have really interesting stories, and even if I don't really love a certain character, say Deb, for instance, I have parts of me that really do love her, even though there's things that don't. They do a really good job of exploring these characters in a way where you could kind of feel both sides of the coin with all of them, Dexter himself included. I like when shows do that, and I think even if this wasn't my favorite season or anything, I think they did a very good job exploring that through the characters within this story. But again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying it, and this video is going to be a little quicker than most of mine. This season did not really resonate with me. I want to rewatch it because I think this one will have a lot that I go back and rewatch and really appreciate, especially in the earlier episodes with Miguel to begin with, because that story was strong, just something didn't really have my attention, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm really interested to see where it goes from here because Dexter so far has felt very, honestly, rinse, wash, and repeat. You have this story where Dexter's fine in the beginning of the season, then some guy comes in the picture, some girl comes in the picture, and you start to build a bond with them, or you start to like follow the path, and then, they're bad, and then Dexter has to kill them. And the side plot has so far always been Deb just does her Deb things. And then eventually she finds a guy and it either doesn't work out or it does. And then something happens. So far with Anton, it looks like it's working out, which is interesting because we haven't seen that so far. But I'm not yet complaining. I just hope that doesn't become a problem later in the show, because it's something I've definitely noticed so far in these 3 seasons. And I feel like this video is coming at it extremely pessimistic. I don't really feel that way because this show is still very much capturing my interest. I breezed through this season. I breezed through season 2 and even season 1. And if that's any indication of how I feel, I do genuinely like this show. It's very good. This season was just not the strongest for me. And if this is in any form of an indication of what's to come with all of your guys' warnings about the later seasons, I think we're in for a real problem. I'm not going to lie, but I do know there is light at the end of this tunnel because season 4 apparently, in the eyes of most of you guys, is the best season of Dexter. And then I've heard some other people say season 7 is pretty solid, but then the rest is really bad. I even have some friends at work. I was catching up on a piece of it at work today. And a friend saw me watching my recap that I was watching, and he was like, "Oh, the ending to this is worse than Game of Thrones." And I've heard that from you guys too. So I mean, I'm interested to see what that is. That's for sure. I don't want you to think, again, that I'm being all pessimistic about this show. But if this was any indication of what may be to come and why this show gets bad later, I could see it. That's all I'm saying. I didn't dislike it, but it just didn't hold my attention the same way the other seasons have. Some plot points were a little weird and just wasn't for me. My opinion may change a lot. And again, I know this video is repetitive, but I want to rewatch it and maybe I'll come back and do a different one. But the whole point of this channel is to give as honest takes as I can when I have them. And I just finished Dexter season 3, episode 12, and this is how I feel about it. Sorry, that's how I feel. Can't wait to see season 4 though, because everyone's been talking this one up a storm, and I believe it because season 2 was phenomenal, like an outstanding season of TV. So I can't wait to see what they cook up that season and go from there. Can't wait to talk about the show. I'm definitely going to be watching all of it. I'm going to be watching both spin-off series as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. Really excited to continue talking about Dexter, and definitely I'm going to be doing video essays. I already started a couple of them that I'm writing right now, so look forward to that. Be subscribed if you haven't already for those, if you like Dexter and things like that. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. That's my girlfriend's hand back there giving a peace out for me, but I'll do a triple peace with her this time when I say I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some seasons of TV that come along and just have it. Dexter season 4 is absolutely one of those seasons. This season just hits the ground running, and its pace is just incredible from start to finish. I wrapped up this season in literally a day and a half, pretty much. I can't believe I did that. I started it yesterday morning. It's been like a day and a half. I started it yesterday morning and finished it this afternoon. Like, I don't even know how that's possible. I really don't. I've been saying it over and over. Dexter is a series that I've just been plowing through, but this one just stands the test of time and is by far one of the best seasons of TV that I have ever seen. And there are so many reasons for that, and I'm going to get into all of them in this video, but there's so much to keep up with, and especially since I watched it so quickly, like, this is just going to be a bit of a brain dump, guys. I never got to do reactions of each episode, despite me really wanting to do that, because unfortunately, where I've been watching this show is in a place where I can't just film. It's on my morning commutes, it's sometimes in the office, and things like that. It's in moments where I'm not near a camera, unfortunately. So these are my reactions to everything that unfolded. Specifically, these are my reactions to episodes 9 through 12, because that's when it gets crazy, except for something that happens later on in the season, which we're definitely going to get into, and I have some notes because there's just so much going on, so you might see me looking off a little bit. Jesus, guys, like, there's just so... There's so much here. We're going to jump into major spoilers, so be prepared for that if you haven't seen Dexter season 4. Also, get subscribed if you haven't already, because we're fully diving into Dexter. Whether it gets worse or not from here, I don't care. I love this show. I love it. It's so fucking good. And if you haven't started watching Dexter, either leave now or you just want to watch it to watch, fine, but you're going to get spoiled. It's that good, and definitely get subscribed because I'm going to be covering the rest of the seasons. I'm going to be covering both spinoffs. I'm going to be doing a ton of video essays. I have a ton in the pipeline already. I'll do those after, of course, we get through the seasons and things like that. But my God, there's just so much. I think one of the things that Dexter does best, which is kind of crazy to say, is they have so many plot points going on in one season. It feels like a mess, but it all kind of works right now. That may change, but this season had so much going on, whether it was Christine and Quinn's story, whether it was Batista and LaGuardia's story, whether it was Dexter with the art guys who he ends up killing, whether it was Frank Lundy and Deb, whether it was obviously Dexter with Arthur. My God, there was so much going on. I didn't even talk about Rita in that mix. There are so many moving parts, and it all just comes together really fucking well. I don't know how else to word it. It's just solid in every front, and I can't say that about a lot of other shows. I can't say that about a lot of other things. And yes, I think this is an example of when one season of one show it's just dynamite. Every show has that. You could point to a lot of other shows where there's like that one season or that one episode. A prime example is like Ozymandias with Breaking Bad, which is the third to last episode of that series. It's the best episode of TV, hands down, point blank, period. This is like that, but on a season level. It all works so well. I don't even know where to begin. So I'm just going to brain dump here. John Lithgow as Arthur, as the Trinity Killer, was just so good. He is just such an incredible actor, and he was such an incredible villain because there's so many mixed emotions you have for this guy. Obviously, he's disgusting. Like, obviously, he's a bad guy. He's a terrible father. But you also get this sense of like, I don't know if the word is remorse, but you get this sense of understanding for why he is the way he is. And he does such a good job of playing this terrifying bad guy, but also one that you kind of understand and sympathize with. He has this playful energy like a kid because obviously his childhood was ruined when he was 10, just like Dexter's, which is a phenomenal juxtaposition because the two of them, which I think was a general theme of this season, the two of them play off in just different versions of one another. Obviously, Dexter looks to John Lithgow's Arthur as this like, in a sense, like a father figure of serial killing in some weird way, someone that he could like learn from and stuff like that. And obviously that all goes awry by the time we get to the final episode, and more specifically, the final shot, major spoilers here, where Rita is found to be one of the victims of the Trinity Killer. Like, bro, what the we are going to come back to that, but we got a lot to talk about before that. But my God, that's so sad. That really sucks because I loved Rita. I also loved, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, I loved Frank Lundy. Like, freaking Frank Lundy was just the man. Special Agent Frank Lundy's so good. Now they're both gone, and I'm like, damn, bro. Like, look, it's great when a show kills off the people that it needs to, when a story serves its purpose, and it does a good job of that. Like, there's some times where it's necessary. I think it was necessary. I think their characters had a fitting spot for where their demise was and all of that stuff. But I don't know how the show was going to go on without them because there was such an important dynamic, like Dexter having this secret with Rita and all of that stuff. It was just so wonderful. I don't know how many seasons you could have done that anyway, so I'm glad they did it here. But on the other half, you have Frank Lundy. These are the two biggest deaths of the season. Frank Lundy, who was just such a fascinating character, whether it was because him and Deb had this very interesting relationship that was very fun to watch, or whether it was the fact that Frank Lundy, in some way, shape, or form, had to have known something about Dexter, because he wouldn't have kept him that close if it wasn't for that sort of weird, eerie suspicion hunch that he clearly had for the guy. Those were two just phenomenal characters that it sucks to have seen wasted on screen, but it fit really well, and I'm glad because that's what good storytelling does. It puts characters in the right positions for something like that to happen, where you got a lot of them, but you want more and more, but then they take it away from you. That's good writing. That's good storytelling. This had all of that. And it's obviously not only that. We're going to talk probably more about Frank Lundy and stuff later, but there's just so many more themes that this season explored, whether it was Dexter killing a clearly innocent man in the guy who was the photographer who was famous, but really it was his partner that was the bad guy. Dexter kills the wrong guy. and it sent him down an earth-shattering path, which has ramifications for the entire season because it's like his existential crisis that he went against his code and all of that stuff. And he did the same for Arthur by not killing him ahead of time. And that led to Rita's death. That led to so much. Like, oh man. And I didn't even scratch the surface of freaking Arthur's daughter, Christine. That's a phenomenal story too. I thought that was executed really well, where she's the reporter. She's obviously trying to get inside scoop, but she's also trying to, you know, kind of be like a weird vigilante for her dad and all of that stuff. So she ends up being with Quinn, and then it comes out, we learn that she was the one who killed Frank Lundy and shot Deb to protect her dad, but her dad doesn't give a flying fuck about her. Like, what? Oh my God. Damn. Like, I just, there are so many things that happened this season. Like, that was so good. And then the way that even panned out for Christine with Deb and that whole apology that happened where Christine ended up killing herself after the fact that Deb couldn't forgive her because she had nothing left. My God. Like, phew, Jesus Christ. I now understand why you guys have talked this season up a storm. I really do. This season was just so fucking good. Like, I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch this season. This is one of those seasons of TV, I guess. I mean, it's a shame it took till season 4 to have a season this dynamite, but this is one of those seasons of TV that will stick in my mind forever. It's one of those seasons of TV that I will never forget, and I will constantly go back and watch. Just like how there's episodes of, let's say it's The Walking Dead that I go back to watch all the time, or like Ozymandias, or I don't know, Plan and Execution from Better Call Saul or something like that. This is ingrained as one of the greats. This is just one of the greats because there was just so, there's just so much. I didn't even talk about Batista and LaGuardia. I loved both of their characters. I've always been a big fan of Batista. He's been great. He's great in the ensemble of cast. And LaGuardia, while I didn't exactly love her, she was always fine. I never had a problem with her or anything like that. So to see them get married seemed like on paper, like if you think about the story trope of that, it seems forced, but for those two characters, it oddly just fit. It was a little interesting that they got married in the office, for sure, but like, it ended up working and fitting in a way that I didn't really think was possible, and I'm really happy that they did that. Just all in all, it's another prime example of good writing. My God. And then one of the best examples of good writing is obviously the relationship with Arthur and Dexter. That was just done so well. Despite me having a few questions about how it all worked that way, like Dexter did get a little dumb here and there, but obviously it was because he was thinking for his kids and all of that stuff. But in the end of the day, the dynamic there between Dexter and Arthur was just really fucking solid, the whole thing. And I was very surprised at the fact that Arthur didn't catch on sooner, that Dexter was lying to him the whole time, saying he was, what was it, Kyle or something like that? And then we get that final reveal at the end where he's like, hello, Dexter Morgan. Oh my God. Like, come on, bro. I'm surprised I'm surprised that the Trinity Killer didn't like see that coming at all. But I liked their dynamic the entire time, where obviously Dexter was playing this guy who was just out to do good deeds with this good family man. So he played along with that. And then Arthur, of course, believes him. But then Dexter ends up saving Arthur's life instead of just letting him die. But that had instant ramifications on literally everything that happened. Like, dude, this is just so good. It's so good. I don't know how else to word it. And I'm sorry, I might just be rambling and ranting over this praise of this season, but like, Jesus Christ. And okay, now we have to talk about the two big things because I already kind of talked about them, but we're just going to talk about them in just general, and I'm just going to brain dump here. Frank fucking Lundy, dude. I loved his character. I know I said that earlier in the video, but I just did. He was like, he stole every scene he was in. He had this interesting chip on his shoulder that just made for just a fun person to follow. And it just sucks that he went too soon, because I would have loved to have seen where that could have went with the story, with essentially Frank maybe finding out that Dexter is a real serial killer. But no, it was cut off, and that sucks for Deb, Deb isn't my favorite character of all time, but just watching her go through that when she finally found someone she really, really loves, even though Anton she also really, really loved. That's a whole other thing. But it was just so sad to see that because he came back, he was just dynamite this entire season, and then he gets killed so abruptly by Christine, which really sucks. I mean, it really sucks, but again, it was good storytelling. Now, the other one, and before I get into this, so early on when I was planning a video, I think I was talking about season 3 and I wanted to get a snippet of something from the first episode of season 4 because I had already watched it. I Google image searched Dexter season 4 episode 1. And for some reason, when I did that, one of the fucking Google results that came up in the image suggestion, you know how sometimes like on Google, it'll show you the images, but then there will be like a little tab of like, I guess it's like AI suggestions of other searches to click into. One of them said Rita's death, Dexter season 4. And I looked at that while I was on episode 1 of season 4. I was like, no. And I was like essentially gaslighting myself into believing that wasn't true because I was trying very hard not to get spoiled anything. So I saw that as I was watching episode 1. And for the entire day that I've been watching this season, because that's pathetic that I've watched the season in a day, whatever. For the entire day that I've watched this season, I was just telling myself that was just AI. Like, there's no way that's real. Like, even though, to be fair, it was kind of obvious in the storytelling that she was going to die. Like, it wasn't surprising that it happened. The execution, literally and figuratively, was shocking. But regardless, when I saw that, I was just trying very hard to pretend I didn't see that, or it could have been fake, or it could have been a lie or something. But I unfortunately had that in the back of my head the entire time. I didn't see any pictures or anything like that. Thank God I didn't. Didn't see any pictures, but I saw that text and I was like, oh, she's going to die. But in my head, I knew she was, but in the back of my head as well, I was also like, nah, it was just fake or whatever. But again, the storytelling of this season being about Dexter being a dad and the really big focus on Rita and their relationship, as well as Rita cheating a little bit this season. It was all pinpointed on something bad is going to happen to Dexter's family life. That's what this season really was about, and it was exploring those themes pretty directly. So it definitely wasn't a surprise, and I'd be interested to know if I would have felt that way had I not accidentally seen that Google image result. But to me, because I did know that, and just in general, I felt like it was kind of obvious she was going to die. I just would have never seen it coming the way it went. Like, oh my God. Again, a prime example of phenomenal storytelling, like just genuinely phenomenal storytelling. They wait till the last like 30 seconds of the season to reveal the biggest ever plot twist that could have ever happened. Rita, his wife, was the last victim of the Trinity killer. That's nuts, bro. That's nuts. And I feel so horrible for Rita because she was every symbol of good imaginable. Every other character in this season has flaws. Rita maybe a little bit, like she lied about the fact that she was married at like 16 or something like that. She cheated a little bit with the guy. She clearly has some hang-ups there for sure, but she was entirely innocent, just a genuine good human. And you could tell that by the way she was forcing therapy, forcing him to go to AA, Dexter to go to AA and stuff like, or not Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know what you call it, whatever, therapy for that. But just the way she carried herself, the way she was a single mom, the way she clearly cared for Dexter and just wanted him to open up. She was every symbol of good, and she got treated so horribly for something she didn't even know why. That's so sad. But it's also beautiful storytelling, and it was one of those examples of deaths in a TV show. I'm not going to get into spoilers of other shows, but there's a death in Better Call Saul in the final season of that show that had me jaw dropped and like I couldn't move. This was a death of that same caliber. There's other shows that have similar people like that, but the closest I could come realistically is Better Call Saul's death. That's a big one. But man, like this was one of those, and unfortunately I watched this scene at work. So I didn't really like get to show it that much, but I was like just shocked for a very long time. I'm still shocked at the way they executed it because like I said, I knew it was coming, even though I wish I didn't know it was coming. I knew it was coming. The storytelling was pinpointing that to happen very clearly, especially once Arthur found his location. Like it was definitely going that way. Found out his real name was Dexter Morgan and all that stuff. But it still was just so shocking to see. And I feel so bad for the baby who was put in the exact same situation as Dexter. And that raises a whole series of questions for the spin-offs to come. Like, oh my God. Like, now Dexter's baby was born in sin the same way that Dexter was, essentially, even though there was an age gap. Still, oh my God. And then I didn't even mention, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around thoughts. Deb found out about Dexter's mother and the fact that Brian Moser was related to Dexter and all of this stuff, but it still panned out so well where Deb doesn't know the full extent of it and she's still oblivious to it. I don't know where this is going to go. I really don't. Is this going to end up like something like Hank from Breaking Bad, where Hank finds out, I shouldn't be giving spoilers to that, but I mean, I'm talking about the story itself, where Hank's the DEA agent, Walt's the the drug dealer and all that stuff, and their stories intersect at some point. Is this going to happen with Deb and Dexter? Like, I would love for that to happen. That would be really cool, but I would also hate for that to happen for Deb's sake, because the two of them are all they have. But it's really interesting to follow her slowly learn more about Harry and learn more about Dexter because of that. It's just, oh man, it's just good writing. This video is going on very long. This is an 18-minute review of season 4, and I'm just brain dumping. I could talk about so much more, but I might save some extra sporadic thoughts for some shorts, because I did promise you guys I'd give reactions, and they're still in my head, like they're still coming. This is all fresh to me, guys. I fucking loved this season. It was a perfect season of TV. It literally was. And now I'm like really badly hooked on Dexter. This is a real problem. I'm going through this series faster than I've gone through anything in my life. Like Walking Dead, when I started watching that show, that took me months to finish. This is taking me weeks. Not even. It's taking me like a week. This is crazy. This is so good. Holy shit. I can't wait for season 5. I have heard this was the peak, so I know to expect. It's not the same from here. That's fine. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. You're going to find out, because I will be covering it. So be subscribed if you aren't already. Let's take the conversation to the comments. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter Season 5, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about this season, because I understand that this is regarded as one of the weaker seasons of Dexter, and I know it's not the weakest in the eyes of most people. I do get that, but when I've asked throughout my time watching this show, what were some of the worst seasons, or what was like the weaker points of the show, Season 5 has always been in that conversation. And I honestly don't agree with that. I didn't think it was a bad season at all. Like, if I'm going to give it as honest as I can, frankly, I personally felt that season 3 was worse than season 5, but not for the same reasons. Like, there's elements here that I think were bad and I think start to really show the flaws of this show, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I personally enjoyed season 3 of the show. So if that's any consolation, that's kind of what we're going to be getting into in this video. I have a lot of feelings that I just want to brain dump out. I had finished watching it today and I couldn't wait to get home and just record this. So I'm just going to go like off what I'm thinking by head. If things pop in, it might be a little more random. So yeah, I'm going to start with that again. Season 3, I just personally found boring. Season 5, I really enjoyed the story. Like, I really liked this story with a lot of the characters, whether it was Jordan Chase, I liked Lumen's story. There was some elements to Quinn and Deb that I liked, only a few though, which we'll get into at some point. I liked the PI story, so I guess all of that is to say, the entire premise of the season was really solid, especially how it picked up immediately where season 4 left off with the discovery of Rita dead. I liked that it picked up following right from that and just going full swing into the story. And I even liked that episode 1 focused a lot on Rita, and it was great to see her once again in the story, and it wasn't like season 4 was the last time we'd ever see her. What I didn't really like about that is later on with Lumen and their relationship, it almost feels like in certain ways Dexter got over her a little too soon, though I also understand that they were trying to tell the story of Dexter was essentially trying to save Lumen And in a sense, it made him a little bit more at peace with Rita. So I get that, but it also did feel a little quick. I'm even glad that Deb at some point in the season recognized that and was like, don't you think going with some hot blonde is like moving too fast? I'm glad that was addressed. But overall, this season was good. It was definitely good. It wasn't, I don't know, like if I had to rank them realistically speaking, I would say season 4 is the best, then season 2, then season 1, season 5, then season 3 so far. That's kind of like where I'm feeling at the moment. And again, it just wasn't because the season was bad, but there were elements to this season that I could see where now this show is going to take kind of a different turn and make some more questionable decisions. If I'm not mistaken, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, pretty sure the original showrunner or creator of Dexter on Showtime left the show or something like that. I should probably know this before I record a video, but I'm just brain dumping here. After season 4, so I think from what I've heard from people that it changes after season 4 because of that. And you could definitely feel that here because I feel like they made a lot of really ridiculously convenient plot points. And I wrote them on my phone, so I'm actually just going to read off them really quickly so I don't forget later. Deb not going through the plastic in I think it was episode 12, I'm pretty sure, to see that it was Lumen and Dexter that killed Jordan. That was like ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. That was one of them. Quinn with the cop overall and that whole storyline and the fact that I'm talking about the PI, the fact that there was ample opportunities for that PI to just outright be like, Quinn, he's the killer, like blank, like all that stuff. Like the fact that didn't happen just felt very, very convenient. Quinn getting framed in general felt a little bit forced and convenient at that. And even the way they played it off where Dexter just like quietly changed the fact that it was, obviously the PI's blood on Quinn's shoes was just convenient as well. Dexter giving up on Rita, I already kind of mentioned that, but I've mixed feelings about that. There was just a lot of elements to that in this season, and those were some of the biggest ones. There were definitely more. This was one of the seasons where I just watched all the events unfold and was like, how are they doing this and keeping it up like it's nothing? Dexter should have been caught a long time ago, a long time ago. Deb should have caught on to Dexter in some way. I know she has her blinders on to him, of course, like that makes sense. But there's a lot of evidence right in front of you, even if it's not cold hard, like a dead person with like his blood on it or whatever. There's just, it's clear that it's Dexter. He's been in these situations so many times. And that's kind of a problem that I have with this season as well. And what really concerns me going forward, it's starting to really feel rinse, wash, and repeat with this storytelling, and that's where the cracks really start to shine. Again, I'm saying all of that not to say that this season was bad, because I really genuinely don't think it was. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this season. It was very fun to watch. It's just, it's the same sort of thing every time. Dexter has these big bads that he goes after. He gets a little too close to the sunlight with them to the point where the entire Miami PD is basically on him, but he gets out of it in these really convenient ways. And that would never happen in the real world. Things like, another example of the convenience thing is, of course, when Dexter's on his way to Jordan after he captures Lumen. Then he gets in the car accident with the caterpillar machine. It's like, bro, that wouldn't happen. Like that's a little outlandish, to be honest with you. But there was just a lot of that this season that I think threw it off for me. But there was a lot that really worked for me as well. I mean, I could see kind of an argument to people not liking Lumen. I don't know that for a fact. Maybe you guys did like her. But yeah, like she was a little annoying, but I actually really liked the storytelling. It felt very Bonnie and Clyde-esque in a way that him and Lila didn't have in season 2. This one felt more natural. I think the relationship felt natural and it felt right for Dexter. And it was honestly kind of heartbreaking at the end when Lumen decided to go away, even though she made the right decision. Like, she needed to go away for sure, especially after all that happened. Like, she deserved to leave. But it was sad because it kind of, for the first time, felt like Dexter was doing, or at least in a right place where he could be who he truly is with a woman and not feel like let back from it. I was happy for Dexter when that was kind of the reality of this season. But then when Lumen eventually decided to, part ways, it was unfortunate. But I did also kind of like see that coming. It seemed like the whole season Lumen was not directly like in a manipulative way, but basically just using Dexter for his ability to kill people well. That's what it felt like. Another really convenient plot point this season that I'm just remembering now was the entire thing with the dentist guy and the other guy that Dexter was tracking down on a totally separate note, the RV guy, and how he framed that in the last minute. Literally, I hate when shows do this, when Dexter is about to get caught. Like, Deb and Masuka and all of them are like right in front of Dexter, and then they just turn a corner and Dexter's gone. Like, that's not realistic at all. That doesn't happen. Like, that's not real. Like, those things just pissed me off, to be completely honest with you, but they didn't piss me off in a way that a show like Fear the Walking Dead pisses me off. This one, yes, very convenient, not realistic, but you can suspend disbelief and still have a really good time. It wasn't immersion breaking, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. I thought about it after and was like, well, that was stupid. But a show like Fear the Walking Dead, everything that happened just pissed me off and was stupid and immersion breaking. So I think there's differences. And obviously it's a different show. It's a different showrunner, different writers, all of that stuff. I still think to its core element, the vibe of Dexter feels the exact same this season. It didn't change with maybe potentially new creative direction. Like I mentioned, I don't know if that's true or not. Definitely let me know in the comments. Like, it still felt very consistent to the story of Dexter overall, but it felt rinse, wash, repeat. We have this big bad that, the Miami PD is on to Dexter. Things go wrong, and then Dexter's fine by the end of the season. This is where I'm at with the show. I really want Dexter to tell Deb. That's what I want. And I think at the end of this season, we got to see what Deb would do if there was a vigilante doing the right thing. That was an interesting thing to explore because we saw Deb literally let the vigilantes go, which, even though it was very dumb that she didn't go through the curtain to see that it was Dexter, I think that opens a new interesting light into Deb that I really hope the showrunners do not screw up. Again, the story's told, so it happened. I'm sure I will. I'm not sure. I know I will find out when I watch season, I think it is 9 is the last season of the show. But that's what I want. Like, I want Dexter to be caught. And I want that story to be told in a way where the Miami PD is all for Dexter. That's what I would love to see. They're all for it. They think he did the right thing, but obviously he has to go to jail for it because you can't be a vigilante. And I thought about this today when I was watching the show. Is it really bad to be a vigilante? My first reaction was no, not at all. You're doing the right thing. But then the problem becomes it gets hairy, as we've already seen with Dexter to begin with, in ways like if you're a vigilante and you're going after a person, but you accidentally didn't realize until after they're dead that they were innocent, well, then you just committed just first degree murder. You know what I mean? So that's why vigilantism is obviously illegal. It makes sense. Things get very gray and it's tough without the backings of a police department with all the infrastructure that they have. That's why vigilantism is illegal. But I hope that story gets told, knowing that Dexter is in a spinoff and that he survived whatever. I mean, I don't know what he survived. I don't know what happens to him, but that he made it through the series and that there's a spinoff with him in it makes me think he didn't get caught, which sucks. But I feel like that would be a really good natural way to finish the story of Dexter, like the canon main series. Will it happen? I don't know, but I do think it opens up a very interesting story to be told with Deb. Though, obviously, if Dexter told Deb, that would also open up a whole what is the word I'm looking for? Can of bad worms, I guess is the phrase that I'm going for. Because obviously, Deb runs her mouth. She's very aggressive and quite frankly, a little annoying, despite I love her character, but that's just how the character is. So I don't think it would ever work that he would tell her, but it's just, I don't know. I don't see where this is going because right now it feels very cyclical. Every season seems to have the same sort of thing. And I liked the story they told with that same sort of thing because what they do is they explore different emotions with Dexter through these seasons. So it's kind of okay that you have the same like template of a story. You just change out the motif and the actual statement that the season is going to make. I'm okay with that. I'm still enjoying it. I'm not saying it's a problem, but I think this season was the first season where I really started to see the cracks kind of slip. And I hope that 6, 7, 8, and I think 9 don't have the same problems, but I have heard it gets really bad from here. I heard 7's good, but then I heard the rest kind of are terrible. So I don't know. Season 6, I heard sucked too. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned for it. But I think if it keeps up with the vibe and keeps up with that cool sort of vibe that Dexter just has, the show overall, I think it'll still have a very special place in my heart because so far, even up till now, it really does. This is a great show. And honestly, this season was a great season. I just noticed some cracks. That's how I feel about it. One thing I forgot to mention is Aster. I like that she finally started to come around towards Dexter. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. It was one of the highlights of the season for me, for sure. Another thing now that I'm just rapid firing is Quinn and Deb fucking in Rita's bathroom was really messed up. And I actually hated that. And it pissed me off when I saw it. But I did like the way the relationship slowly panned out, where we started to see, Deb and them form Deb and Quinn form a more serious relationship. Meanwhile, he's doing all of these things with the PI and then eventually betrays Deb because of that. And I like where that went. I think it was a good storytelling objective to do that. I thought it felt a little too forced. I don't really like Quinn as a character, but I do think they did a good job kind of redeeming him a little bit this season to where I don't hate him as much as I did prior. So there's things in there that I liked despite it feeling a little forced and again, a little too convenient. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I liked Lumen's story. I liked Dexter's story with Lumen and Jordan Chase and all of that stuff. I thought it was a very interesting thing to explore and something that we don't get to see in TV shows a lot. So again, there was a lot to like, but a lot that just kind of left me iffy. I'm really excited to see where we go from here because I know this is where the waters get muddied and the seasons get a little worse. So definitely interested. Be sure to be subscribed. I will definitely be doing a season 6, 7, 8, and I think season 9 review as well, and then all of the other spinoffs. So definitely be subscribed for that. And with all that out of the way, let's take it to the comments. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter season 6, and I have way too many thoughts about this season because there was a lot that went on, and this is known throughout the community as one of the worst, if not the worst, seasons of Dexter. And I completely agree with that sentiment. Do I think it's the worst season of TV ever, or actually a bad season in general? No, not necessarily. I don't think it's the worst thing I've ever seen in any which way, shape, or form. It just wasn't the best. It was the worst season of Dexter, at least so far. And full disclosure, before we get any further, I couldn't film right away after watching it. I'm breezing through the show. At this point, I've already seen all but 2 episodes of season 7. So you're going to get 2 videos pretty close to back about this show, season 6 and season 7. So yeah, just a little bit of a spoiler there because a lot of my reactions I've already seen the outcomes of, but I'm going to pretend I didn't for the sake of this video. All my reactions I wrote down kind of as is, so I'm just going to kind of go off of that. And I have to start with the beginning one. I'm going to go completely out of order here. So yeah, major spoilers ahead. We're jumping right into it right now. That ending was insane. It was seriously, when I say it was one of the craziest endings to TV that I've ever seen, ever. It rivals a major scene with a major character in season 6, episode 7 of Better Call Saul. Those of you who know, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but that was this thing that happened with Deb catching Dexter in the act as he had just killed Travis was one of the craziest reveals for me personally. I screamed. I flipped out. I was like, what? I was flipping out. That was insane. And it was a moment that I was waiting for so damn long within this story because this season just pointed out every single flaw with this show, every single one of them came out this season, except for the last 30 seconds of the episode when it was the best moment in Dexter, in my personal opinion. That finale was fucking crazy. It was absolutely insane. It deserves all the praise in the world. Who cares if Scott Buck wrote a shit season? It doesn't matter. That finale just made the entire thing, which apparently is a good thing because from what I've heard, season 8's finale is terrible. So at least there's that. I'm just finally glad that we got a reveal that we've been waiting for since episode 1. It almost feels like, for those of you who are familiar with Breaking Bad, not going to spoil that, but the entire relationship with Hank, the DEA agent, and Walt, the drug kingpin, and how that eventually has to crash or something. I'm not going to spoil what happens there, obviously, but it was one of those moments that just needed to happen in the story, and the way it happened, yes, sure, you could see it coming. Anyone could just walk in, blah, 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 but like, absolutely crazy. Executed, in my opinion, both figuratively and literally, puns intended, flawlessly. Absolutely just brilliant. Bravo, Scott Buck, for that one. Seriously. But that was, again, I think the only real positive of the season. I'll go over some of the other pros as well, and it's really only one. Is Brother Sam was a good character. That's literally, like, I'm not even kidding when it comes to pros. If you see that, that's it. That's my only thought. Brother Sam was a cool character. I liked that we finally had a genuine good friend to Dexter that wasn't evil, didn't have some other ulterior motive, at least from what we've seen. He was just a straightforward dude who happened to be in kind of a reform mode because he found one with God after him doing bad things as well. And it felt like a natural progression for both characters. But that's it. The rest of the season was awful. It was bad. It was a bad season of TV. Again, not the worst season I've ever seen. Like, nothing like terrible, not Fear the Walking Dead level. It was just not good for Dexter. It was a bad season of TV for Dexter, I should say. And that's because immediately after Brother Sam teaches him all these things, when Dexter discovers that the killer was that other guy who works in the shop, he just throws out every single thing that Brother Sam taught him that we spent half of the season, which was a waste of fucking time, building up for. It was really ridiculous. I mean, yes, I liked Brother Sam, but it just didn't do anything for the story. And honestly, at that, Brother Sam's arc, despite me liking him, was boring as shit. Everything here I just thought was really boring, and I thought that's what it came down to. But that's not even a real complaint. Okay, all right, it was boring. Brother Sam was good, but it was boring. The problem, as I mentioned already, is the fact that Dexter just erased everything that this good person taught Dexter, who he really cared for, and he helped him open up about religion and all of that stuff. Could have went somewhere a little bit better than that, but no. We had just a horrible execution of the entire thing because he goes up against his word. Like, oh my God, another quick thing. This isn't really anything crazy, but by the way, totally on a separate note, what happened to Sonia? Why do we now have Angel's sister in that role? Like, what happened there? There was no word of it. I get it. People get recasted, and I don't have a problem with that per se, but it was just like, you really liked Sonia, and then she's just not in it at all. No mention, no nothing. I thought that was very interesting. There's just a lot there. Another thing, like, I'm sorry, I'm going out of order. Before I get to the craziest things that I really didn't like, another thing that I really didn't like, and this may be a hot take, so I'm warning you, this may be really, really hot. I did not like the episode with Brian Moser and with Dexter going to Nebraska to see Jonah again because they thought he killed his whole family. I hated that episode. Brian was so annoying in the episode. All they did was be like, you're going to kill him, do it. What are you waiting for? Do it. It was just so annoying. Dexter shooting a gun out the window was just so out of character for the character. And then the whole reveal that Jonah didn't kill him, but they kind of killed themselves was just so stupid to me. It really was. It was just ridiculous. And it felt like just a way to do some silly fan service because, yeah, we like Rudy, we like Brian Moser, whatever. Dexter. That's a great character, but like you just brought him back in what I thought was a cheap way. And you brought him back because at the end of that episode prior, we see obviously Brother Sam's entire teachings to Dexter just get thrown out the window, and then Brian just appears. But then Brian's eating a sandwich. He's like wearing Nebraska clothes and all that stuff. And I get it. It's like Dexter's imagination and stuff, but it felt weird. This season did a lot with these imaginary people. And that leads me to the worst case of this, the villains of this season, Travis and Geller. And Geller, who apparently was a ghost, who he wasn't a ghost, that was ridiculous. Not to mention, it was fucking boring. It was just not a good story. Geller pissed me off the whole time. Just the way he was, what they were doing, and all of that. And the way it was portrayed, like, dude, Dexter saw and interacted with Geller. What are you talking about? He wasn't real. Like, okay, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I thought I saw Dexter interacting with these people. I don't know. But to me, it looked damn well for sure that Dexter saw this person and interacted with him and all of that stuff. But no, just magically Travis is tied up to a freaking harness on the ground and all that stuff. Sure, he could have done it to himself. But there were just so many examples in this season where it was like, this doesn't make sense for it to be a ghost. It doesn't make sense for Travis to be the only one to have this happen. It doesn't make sense when you see things like, okay, they did it a little cleverly, but when Travis's sister, like, I guess kind of noticed that there was someone outside or something like that, and that Travis was talking to them, like, there were just so many examples where it just didn't fit. It didn't make any sense. And frankly, I just couldn't stand either of them. Colin Hanks just did a weird thing with Travis where, I'm not saying he's a bad actor, but it just didn't work. He didn't feel convincing as a character. He was spineless, but then he was supposed to be this like crazy villain who went from a very methodical plan to out of nowhere as soon as Dexter arrived, and as soon as like Geller was revealed to be a ghost, then everything just unraveled and he just went full terrorist. It didn't make any sense. It was stupid. It was not fun to watch at all. And sure, the Doomsday killings in the beginning of the season were kind of interesting because it's like, well, what are they really getting at? And that mystery to unravel, sure, was fine, but it just was, they were just cringe characters. I couldn't stand Geller, and I really couldn't stand Travis either. I think in retrospect, maybe I'll look at it a little differently, and I'm interested to see, now knowing what I know, how it plays on a second viewing, sure, but it was dumb. Oh my God. It was very stupid. I just didn't like that. And then another thing that felt forced with Quinn and Deb, their ending in general, them two together, it felt very forced. I wasn't a big fan of all of that in general, and him proposing and then all the crazy stuff that went on with that. It wasn't for me. Let's see, what else do I got? I already talked about Brother Sam, Brian Moser, Deb the Lieutenant. Oh, here's one. Totally forgot about this. Deb the Lieutenant. Okay. Honestly, as far as a character arc is concerned, it's the right decision to have Deb eventually become lieutenant. And actually, now knowing what I know, again, I told you I'm going to try to avoid the fact that I know what happens in season 7, having seen it. Like, they needed to have this step. It was a crucial step, especially for what comes the next season. But it just didn't. I know the intent of it was that it isn't supposed to feel right. That was the intent. So from a writing perspective, I think they kind of did a good job with that, because it's fair. It's not supposed to feel exactly natural, but it just really didn't feel natural. It wasn't right because Deb is such a potty mouth. She's just someone who just works so well on the homicide floor with all of those people, just being herself. She doesn't really fit the character arc of someone who's a lieutenant. So to see her become the lieutenant just felt so forced. It really did. And then the whole other storyline, which with becoming lieutenant, and I forget the guy's name who is LaGuardia's other boss. I forget his name, but that he was like with a hooker who died, and then he didn't do anything about it and had to hide it and cover it up, was just weird and boring. it wasn't fun, and that whole arc just in general wasn't fun. I also couldn't stand what they did with Batista and Quinn this season. I wasn't a fan of seeing Quinn just go down like a bad path, and also the only funny thing with Quinn was the fact that he ended up like banging some really old lady. That was pretty funny to me. That was like the only funny moment, but I just feel like those characters got sidelined. The fact that LaGuardia and Batista had an off-screen divorce was so stupid. It just like, it feels like they tried to right the wrongs of some of the things they did previously, which weren't even wrong, and just like correct it quickly behind the scenes. Like, why did they have to get divorced? What good did it really serve? Because I love Batista. I think he's a great character, but like, he was just so sidelined. And now I feel like he's just a waste of a character, which sucks because I do really like him still. Like, I don't have a complaint against him, but I feel like what they did there just completely sidelined him as a character. Not to mention, he would have made a way better lieutenant right now than Deb would have. And I think, obviously, like I said, it makes sense for Deb to be the lieutenant. Like, it fits. It's where her natural progression goes as a character in a story. It's just the way they executed it and the way they got to those places to put the pieces on the chessboard or all of that to get the pawns into place. It didn't really work. Like it felt forced. It didn't feel natural. And honestly, this season was one of the first seasons where it got tiring. It really did, because every season up until actually season 7 isn't really like this, which by the way, I know I shouldn't be talking about this. I love season 7. It may actually be one of my favorite seasons of Dexter, if not my favorite season of Dexter, which is crazy. But anyway, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie. Just the fact that they did everything they did this season, it just didn't really work for me. I didn't think any of it really fit. And that's what I was getting at. It became repetitive. It was the first season of Dexter, for the most part, except season 7, where the show just felt very formulaic to the point where it was boring. Dexter just finds a new group of people, has to keep it from the police, then they're intersecting the whole way. It just feels the same. It didn't feel original. It felt like it was trying to grab at anything they could for fan service, like Brian Moser and all of that stuff, and tried to like do the same thing they've done, and it just wasn't fun. Yeah, it introduced a new element with religion, but that's it. Now, obviously, I saved some of the best for last. This is a big conversation to the point where I was actually thinking about making a separate video. So like this or comment below if you want to see that. But the entire storyline with Deb going to the psychologist or whatever you call it, and her revealing to us and being revealed in therapy that she loves Dexter and on a sexual level. This was an interesting story. And okay, so I have to preface this because this is going to be it's going to be a controversial take no matter how I frame this. I already said this, so if you want to go back and watch for yourselves, it was either in my episode 1 of season 1 review or my season review for Dexter season 1, one or the other. But I said it very clearly that I had this hunch that they were just more than brother and sister. I had this hunch that Deb liked him in some way. Like, I don't think it was ever hidden. I think it was actually relatively obvious. So to me, I wasn't really shocked or like disgusted by this concept of, obviously it's gross, the concept of it. It's weird for sure, but it wasn't like this was uncalled for me. And honestly, I hate doing this, but before I made this video, I checked out other YouTubers' reviews of this season just because it was a very controversial season. And it was interesting for me to hear takes of many different creators saying that they didn't see that coming at all and they thought it was gross, and which it is gross, but they thought it was just such a disgrace to the character and all of that stuff. And yes, it's really weird. There's no way around it. It is really weird. But like, it was extremely obvious. I don't know how I was relatively alone, at least on the online community of it. I definitely saw that coming. It was very obvious to me. Deb always had this just like my brother this, my brother that, my brother's going to save me. It's just me and you, Dex. Like, more than, like, bro, would your sister ever say that to you? Like, let's be real for a second. If you have a sister, think about your interactions with them. And I know they're not blood. I know that's like it's not a blood sister. Dexter was taken in and all of that stuff. But I don't have these conversations, anything like that with my sister at all. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think it was just portrayed from the very, very start that this is where it was going to go for Deb's character. Yes, still very weird. Like, it's cringy to watch, no doubt about it, but it wasn't a shock. It was obvious to me. I don't know how else to word that. It was still crazy to see. And I like where that kind of ended up. I was going to say just a second ago that I think her name's Jennifer Carpenter, the actress who plays Deb. So I recently learned that Michael C. Hall, who plays Dexter, and Jennifer Carpenter were married in real life. And in season 6, I think Scott Buck had wrote this in essentially as a way for them to have like chemistry on screen and stuff like that. But I mean, the reason I even bring this up to begin with is Jennifer Carpenter. There's like a video of her talking about this and saying, like, defending it in a way because she thought it was obvious too. And like how she likes to have a secret or something with all her characters, whatever. But I agree, like, this was not hidden to me. It wasn't a shock. Grotesque it may be. It wasn't a shock. And it was just, I honestly think it makes for relatively interesting TV because you have this weird dynamic, which makes sometimes crazy shows even crazier in a way that I think feels natural. I could understand why people don't. I could, like, if you didn't see this coming, I could see you thinking this is the worst decision the show ever made. Hands down. I get that. I don't feel that way, though it is weird, if that makes any sense. That's how I feel about the whole thing. Sorry I went off on a rant about that, but that was a big reveal. That was arguably one of the biggest moments of the entire show. So for that to happen was really interesting. And not to give any spoilers for what's to come if you haven't seen it yet or anything like that, but I'm kind of glad they backed off that a little bit in season 7. We get some of it, which is natural because you can't just have that huge plot point and it just go nowhere. But I'm glad they backed off of it and not made it feel super forced, because I think it would have been way worse if they just forced this thing on us. So, I mean, there's good that comes out of it. Yes, extremely controversial, but I actually thought it was, I guess, in a sense, the right take, because it's where it was, to me, inevitably going. But again, that's different for everyone. That's why there's different flavors of ice cream. I don't know. All in all, this is definitely the most controversial season of Dexter, no matter what. Whether it is just the pacing of the show or any of it. This is, in my opinion, the worst season of Dexter. But the ending, the last 30 seconds, made up for it in every which way. It was a fantastic 30 seconds. And that's about it. That's really all that kind of made up for it. I definitely have more thoughts, but this video is 20 minutes long and I've been yapping this entire time, so I don't want to waste your time either. But yeah, I'd love to take it to the comments. There's a lot of controversial things this season, so let's talk about them down there. I would love to hear your takes on this season. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. You'll be seeing a season 7 review very soon. I'm on episode 10 right now already, so you'll be seeing that very soon. Then we got one more season to go after that, season 8, and we're going to obviously do the spinoffs and things like that. So we're coming close. We're going to have video essays. We're going to have all of it. But with all that out of the way, thanks again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Wow. Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter season 7. Like this couldn't be any more of a live reaction. I just finished watching season 7, episode 12, saw that crazy ending, which was just as crazy, if not crazier than season 6's ending. And I'm still in shock. I can't believe what I just saw and how that is maybe going to affect the story in this last season of the show. I have to tell you, I know I've heard from all of you guys that season 8 is a real stinker, maybe even worse than season 6, but I gotta tell you, this ending was so good. It was just an incredible way to end the story, and we're going to talk all about major spoilers for this season. You have been warned that going forward, I'm going to address all of the spoilers of this season. Oh my, that ending with Deb choosing to shoot LaGuerta was crazy, and I'm not going to lie, I could kind of see that coming. It wasn't like a complete 180, but the fact that she did it was... well, it just opens so many questions for what could potentially come now that Deb is an actual murderer, and not just like a murderer who's like Dexter, who he usually has a moral code outside of what he was about to do to LaGuerta, but like a legitimate, just cold-blooded killer. Holy shit. Where is that gonna go? And how badly are they gonna screw that up? Because I've heard they do. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. This season, I'm not going to lie, this may have been my favorite season of Dexter. It may very well. It's a really close contender for me between season 7 and season 4. Both were outstanding seasons. The 3, I'll say this. It's season 2, season 4, and season 7. Those are my top tier seasons of Dexter. Oh my God, this one was just... really solid for me because I don't know about you guys. I wanted to see this storyline play out since season 1. So the fact that we're finally here, and it took a little bit to get there were some bumpy rides along the way, but the fact that we've arrived at this is just music to my ears, and it played out in a way that I really liked. Sure, there were some interesting moments. There were some things that I didn't love. I didn't really love the fact that Deb went back and forth a lot this season, and it felt like the entire season, each time they were about to have a discussion about this, one of them got a call for a homicide and just pushed it off, and that honestly pissed me off a lot this season. But I'm glad, if you like look at all of their scenes collectively together, everything we got with them and with Deb's discovery, starting season 7, episode 1, all the way through to her killing LaGuerta this season, which is fucking wild. It's been a really solid straight ride, but each episode, it just feels like there was like a cock block along the way to stop it from going on. I don't know. Again, these are my raw emotions of the episode. I just finished eating steak and eggs, finished season 7, episode 12, and now I'm shitting bricks on camera because this is fucking wild. I'm not even kidding. This is fucking wild. Jesus Christ. Like, where is this going to go now? I know I spent a lot of time, 3 minutes, like freaking out over this, but that was just crazy. So now I want to talk about the rest of the season because there is other stuff. Obviously, it's not just this. There were things with Quinn and the Ukrainian mob and that girl that he met through there, whose name I'm drawing a blank on. Then there is, of course, Dexter with Hannah. Then there is, of course, Deb and Dexter, that whole thing. Obviously, we have Batista's retirement by the end of this season. There was just a lot of moving parts. I totally forgot that the one guy, I forget his name now, but the one guy who was out trying to like get after Dexter because Dexter made fun of his video game and stuff, he got shot by the Ukrainian mob. That was crazy. But I do have to tell you, because I was talking to one of the viewers of the channel, Paul, and he was asking me how I liked it early on. And I explained to him that I didn't really like the Ukraine story, but that was when I was only, I think it was like an episode and a half, maybe 2 episodes in. And I have to tell you, this was a phenomenal story. Isaac was a great villain or character. Like, I don't know what he was, because yes, he was a bad dude, clearly, but like, he kind of came around and became really redeemable. He was one of the first characters in all of Dexter where that was the case. I feel like this show didn't have that many examples of a character who, in a sense, could be redeemed. Obviously, I mean, not fully. He's still a bad dude. And I guarantee you, if circumstances were just like the slightest bit different, he obviously would have killed Dexter. And I think they did a really good job of explaining that. There was only like one moment this season where it felt a little too convenient that Isaac didn't kill Dexter right then and there. But for the most part, it didn't feel like something that was just ridiculous. If you know what I mean. Like, there are some TV shows, I'm thinking of The Walking Dead for an example, where they have a clear opportunity to kill the bad guy, but they just don't do it, and it's just immersion breaking. This didn't feel that way. Isaac felt like a very, very well fleshed out villain, or again, character, because like, yes, villain, but not villain. I loved their conversations after he got released from prison. I loved their dynamic overall. I just thought it worked really well. I really enjoyed it. And sorry, again, this is a bit of a brain dump. I know a lot of people have been saying that season 7 is the best of the shit. So the shit is like 6, 7, and 8. I get that. And I'm really not trying to let that cloud my judgment of anything that I go into, but I do see a lot of it. But anyway, I don't think season 7 was just like good out of the bad. I think it was good out of Dexter. It was a phenomenal season of TV. Could be one of my favorite seasons. It's one of my favorite seasons of the show. Could be one of my favorite of TV. That was a really fun season for me. I didn't love the Hannah McKay stuff. Like it didn't, you know, like tickle me or anything like that, but it was good. It was interesting to see, but I feel like every time Dexter gets a girl, it's the same sort of thing. And yes, there has been development along the way. Like Rita was someone that he felt home with, you know what I mean? But he didn't love her. He clearly didn't really love her. Then there was like Lila, who he could open up to, but also had to tread lightly with because she was a psychopath and she was like really well too attached. Then there was Lumen, who was like, I thought the perfect match for Dexter. But then there is Hannah, who is just like, yes, Dexter said he loved her. Dexter said that this was right for him and all of that stuff, but it didn't really feel right. It felt wrong in every way, and I know they tried really hard to shove it down our throats that it was, you know, right by Dexter being like, I'm finally in love. I know what love feels like. And I'm glad they did that to by the end of season 7, episode 12, we got to see Dexter come to terms with Harry that he's not just unemotional, like he has emotions and they're coming out and he doesn't want to give that up, which is really interesting and it's great character development. But Hannah McKay didn't really give that sort of vibe that I felt the same way with I guess, like Lumen or Rita. You know what I mean? Like Lumen was a phenomenal partner to Dexter. It's a shame what happened. It's a shame the way that went. I didn't really feel the same way with Hannah, but I did like what she brought to the story. So I'm not really complaining. I'm just being honest about how I feel about it. But man, just all in all, with the cliffhanger that they left us at in season 6, with Deb discovering Dexter and all of that stuff to where we got at the end of this season, I just thought it was really great. It really was. And I'm glad, like I mentioned in my season 6 review, that Deb didn't really focus on this whole love thing with Dexter that much. Yes, like I said, I saw it coming. I didn't think it was like the most disgusting thing. I do want to clarify this really quickly. When I say it's disgusting, I mean like the idea of incest is disgusting. Like that is disgusting. But I don't mean that I think it was disgusting that the writers did that, whereas I think a lot of people do feel that way. I didn't, because I thought that's where the character's evolution was going to go, as disgusting as that sounds, but I'm not disgusted that the writers did it, if that makes any sense. That's how I feel about it. But I'm glad that they didn't focus on it this season, because no one wants to see that at all. The most we got of it was Deb admitting it to Dexter and admitting how fucked up it was. And that just felt absolutely necessary. Like, we needed to see Deb admit on camera how wrong that was, and her just cry about it and open up about that overall. So glad we got that. And that was really just a crazy plot point, but I'm glad in general that season 6 cliffhanger was really thoroughly thought out this season. I have no idea where this is going to go now. I've never been spoiled anything for season 8 of Dexter, so I literally know nothing about where this is going to go. And again, I've heard nothing but bad things, so I'm setting the bar really low. Like, I know that it's not going to be good, but I will say I'm hopeful that my expectations are so low that it's a little bit better than I think it is. You know what I mean? And that's going to be interesting to explore. Like, imagine someone going to watch Game of Thrones right now after having been warned by everyone how horrible the season 8 was. Are they going to look at it the same way? I'm curious about this myself. Like, going into season 8, maybe the fact that everyone's told me it's bad will help me see the good in it a little bit, I hope. Or it's just going to be a fucking clunker. I have no idea. I really don't. But I might have to change the title of my season 6 review after it if it really is that bad. So time will tell. This is a quicker review because honestly, I'm just still like in shock over what happened this episode in episode 12. And I'm really excited to just jump in, finish Dexter, the canon series, and go into the spinoff. So I will definitely be back probably in a week's time, somewhere in that time frame, with a review of season 8. Then I will be doing a review of Dexter, the main series overall. Then we'll be jumping into the season 9. I forget which spinoffs that is called, but the extra season of Dexter that was supposed to right the wrongs. Very excited for that. And we'll see. We'll see if it's a vent or if it's some form of praise. No idea. Definitely let me know your thoughts about season 7 down there. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me? That is how we end Dexter? Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter season 8 and I have so many thoughts, and they're not good thoughts, as you guys know. This isn't a new idea that people don't like the ending to Dexter, at least the 8th season of Dexter. I understand there's New Blood, and New Blood is the true finale. As a matter of fact, I've seen New Blood already. I already finished watching that entire season, and I have thoughts about that. We'll save that for another video, but I'm gonna pretend that we didn't have that, because for a lot of you guys, you watched the show before New Blood existed. New Blood came out like a decade after original Dexter ended. So I'm treating this like the real finale, which it really was the real finale. And it was the worst finale of a show that I have ever seen. And it's not even close. And yeah, a big reason for that is the ending. Like, the last episode was absolutely a train wreck. And there's no other way to put it. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. But also the entire season was bad. I'm going to try to run through the season a little bit and focus most of the video on the rant. If you see me looking down, I have vaults and vaults of notes. Season 8 of Dexter was just atrocious. It was a piece of shit, for lack of a better word. And I'm going to start getting really upset in this video because everything they did just made no sense. There was maybe one pro of the entire season, maybe one pro. And it's the fact that we were introduced pretty much, well, it was 6 months, but we were introduced shortly after the ramifications of Deb killing LaGuerta. And I think the only pro was to see that Deb was broken, but there was a lot in there that I didn't even like the fact that Deb was doing drugs with this guy and like really off the deep end. I understand what you did can affect you in a lot of ways. I get that, but they put Deb down such a dark, horrible path that the character would just never go on in any circumstances. She was such a moral high ground of a character, albeit she had a potty mouth and all of that stuff. And then, of course, bad decisions led her to do what she did. But I just don't buy the fact that she would be doing drugs with characters like this and go that far off the deep end to the point where there was other stuff where, like, she killed the one guy who was, like, after the drug dealer, all that stuff. It was just, But, like, again, if there is one pro, it is the overall concept that Deb would be so broken she would stoop to some level. So I kind of get it, but I don't get how low they brought her. So that's the one pro of the season. And the other pro of the season is Hannah McKay, period. We're going to get into a lot of the problems that Hannah McKay caused this season, but I loved Hannah McKay. I actually think she is, in my opinion, probably the best love interest to Dexter. So I'm not mad that they brought her back at all. I actually really liked her inclusion in this season, even though I didn't like that the entire manhunt was for her and not for Dexter. We're going to get to that, believe me. But man, that's it. Like, those are the only pros. That's it. I can't think of anything else. There is just so much, man. Like, a small thing that just sets off the tone in general. 6 months goes by since LaGuerta's death, and 6 months prior, Harrison was like 3 years old, but 6 months after the fact, they casted an actor who was like 6 or 7 in real life. And we're just supposed to believe that that's the same fucking age person? Get a grip. Oh my God. Like, what? That's just a small little detail, but Okay, so a lot of this season, for lack of a better word, focused on Dexter and this new character that was the worst addition to the show ever, Evelyn Vogel. Fuck Evelyn Vogel, and I'm not talking about the actress, I'm talking about the character, because these writers don't know what to do and how to set stakes in the final fucking season, so they introduce a character that makes us entirely change our belief system over the whole show, because all of a sudden Harrison's code wasn't Harrison's code, but it was instead Evelyn Vogel's fucking code. Are you kidding me? Now, I could get behind the idea of doing that. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not a outlandish idea to think that there may have been a psychologist in the mix who helped Harrison go through, or Harry go through, all of this crazy things that his son is a murderer. I get that. I do. But you cannot do that in the last season and expect us to have any sort of emotional pull towards this character. This is one of the many atrocities, but it was a big one because it was a central focus of this season. We're introduced to Evelyn Vogel, who is this psychologist who calls Dexter a psychopath like 400 goddamn times in this episode. And we're just supposed to care about her and her become this mother figure to Dexter, to the point that when she dies at the hand of her son, the brain surgeon, we're just supposed to feel really bad for it? Get a grip. Like, seriously, get a grip. Who is writing this? It's just, it's not believable. If you wanted to tell this story, you have to do it in a way that makes sense. And you have to do that seasons ago. You can't do that in one goddamn season and expect us to believe that as fans. Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. She was insufferable. She was just an annoying character who, if I had a drink for the amount of times she said psychopath in terms of Dexter this season, I would have been blacked out. Like, badly blacked out. Because it's bad. It is that bad. That is one of the many atrocities, guys. I have a whole list of atrocities this season, but at a big core element, it's Evelyn Vogel, it's the brain surgeon, who we go through many hoops and ladders to figure out is Evelyn's son, which is not even fun. It was boring. It was just a very boring story. Then the only other thing is we have this character, Zach, in the story, who is basically like a fanboy. Like, think in season 10 of The Walking Dead, when there was that guy who was like a super fan of Negan. That was Zach. And of course, Dexter wanted to kill Zach the whole time, but Evelyn was like, no, you cannot. He's a psycho like you. Fuck off, Evelyn. Seriously, fuck you. I don't care. We don't care. But that character was cringe, and I'm glad he died at the end by the hands of this brain surgeon, who, again, we spent this whole time focusing on, and we went through like 3 different killers, and one of them Dexter stabs through the bed, and that was kind of cool. But it turned out that guy, who the fuck even was that guy? Like, I know I breezed through this show, so maybe I missed like some important detail, but there was that one guy who he killed with through the bed and all of that stuff, and it really amounted to nothing. Then only for a few episodes later, we get introduced to Oliver Saxon, who is Evelyn's son, and Evelyn just never thought to mention this like prior at all, up until the point where Dexter starts to believe that this guy is like related in some way, shape, or form. It's just the way it was told was just so dumb. And the reason I have such a problem with this, outside of the fact that Evelyn Vogel should have been introduced seasons ago, is the fact that this is your final fucking season and the pacing is atrocious. It's like a normal season of Dexter. There's no stakes here whatsoever for the first few episodes. And mind you, I am okay within the beginning of the season. We have this concept floating around that Deb has all of these hangups because of what she did. But even that has flaws. Like the fact that LaGuardia's ceremony or funeral or whatever you call it was 6 months after her death made no sense. The fact that we saw nothing of the immediate aftermath of that, like maybe Deb calling it in or something like that. We got none of it. We just do a time skip, which again, I could get behind in some ways, but overall, it was just, oh man, it was just so bad, bro. It was just so bad. Like, okay, yes, again, I could understand the concept that Deb has these hangups over what she did. It makes perfect sense. She regrets killing LaGuardia and wishes it was Dexter. Totally understandable. But then you do it for 4 episodes or so, and out of nowhere, the thing that changes her mind is Dexter telling Deb about Harrison actually killing himself because of the way Dexter was. So she decides ultimately then and there to drive them off a
fucking thing into a lake. And then at that, she saves him. What? Oh my God, like why even do that plot point if you're gonna do it? It's just one of the many examples of the atrocities that this season had. Like really? You're gonna do that? Are you kidding me? Really? That was just all dumb. And that was maybe the only little sliver of redeeming qualities of the plot point of this season was Deb for that little bit of time. And then you ruin it by this. And then all of a sudden, after you try to kill Dexter, then you save him. You're just back to square one. You're back to normal. Yeah, obviously you complained a little bit afterwards, like I'm talking about Deb, but it was just like that never happened after the fact. And it was just so annoying. And then another small thing that I didn't even enjoy, even though I love Hannah McKay, is when Hannah McKay finally comes into the picture, she poisons the two of them. And I get later we understand that she had cold feet and didn't want to do it because she loves Dexter. I liked that. But it was just a goofy way to reintroduce the character because it just made no sense. Like, if anything, you're going to kill Deb and all that stuff. I don't know. But I do like when we got reintroduced to Hannah, she was actually married and with this billionaire guy, and they end up showing that he was abusive to her and all of that stuff. So she kills him and Dexter gets back involved and they rekindled their relationship. So that's it. Really, like I can't think of much else that freaking happened this season other than the fact that once Hannah McKay and Dexter rekindled their love, Hannah and them decide to go and move to Argentina, and that becomes like the central focus of the end. Just to out of nowhere, Dexter's like, yep, let's go to Argentina, goodbye. Like, and I get it because of the manhunt. I also understand that, and I didn't even mention the fact that a lot of the reason that happened was because Deb is now working for a private investigator who he started to look into Hannah McKay and all of that stuff. That's where it goes. That storyline was not fun to me. It was just boring. Also, a lot of the Miami homicide stuff this season, while not bad, was just not good for a final season. Like, there was no stakes in it at all. It was just like a normal season. Oh, Masuka has a daughter now. Okay, like, all right. Like, there was nothing there that was giving endgames, except for the fact that once we start to pick up the relationship of Hannah and Dexter again, the real endgame was Hannah McKay's manhunt, which doesn't make any sense for a show where your fucking lead character is a psychopath murderer who works for Miami Homicide in the fucking homicide department, and you're not going to have a manhunt for him in the final season? Get a grip. And I understand that Showtime at large wanted to keep the character of Dexter alive, and literally go fuck yourself for that. Go fuck yourself, because that should have never been a thing. Yes, I get it. He was a fan favorite. Obviously, it makes sense. Dexter is an immaculate character. And again, this doesn't have to do with like Michael C. Hall or Jennifer Carpenter, because they were at their best. I think Jennifer Carpenter was at her best this season. Same with Michael C. Hall. But Showtime put Scott Buck, who was already bad at this, in a bad situation to have to figure this out in a way that goes against everything the fans would have wanted from this goddamn season. Like, it's just insane. So instead, you focus on this manhunt with Hannah McKay and you take all of the stakes off of Dexter. And ultimately, what comes of it is eventually Evelyn Vogel's son, Oliver Saxon, becomes this big bad who is not even a good big bad. He's extremely boring. And he gets set up in a way that Dexter, I'm skipping around a little bit, but Dexter ends up getting him at the end of this season and has him literally tied up to the chair, tied up, ready to be killed. And then Dexter backs off after he literally told Hannah and Harrison to go off to Argentina without him because he had to finish this last thing because it was like him quaking in his boots. He had to do it. But then he didn't even fucking do it. He saves it for Deb. But in the last moment, the Hannah McKay manhunt comes in and stops that traction, and also Dexter has a change of heart, which is so stupid to begin with. And of course, then Oliver Saxon gets out of the thing and shoots fucking Deb. Really? Are you kidding me? That's the whole reason. That's the whole reason Dexter stayed behind. And now Deb is getting killed at the hands of this guy. Like, oh my God. And of course, Deb didn't get killed right then and there. Deb gets shot in the stomach, which, in fairness, could be fatal. It could be. Now, I understand a lot of the community thinks that the idea, and believe me, it's one of the biggest things I have issues with this season, but a lot of fans think the idea that she died from a blood clot complication, that's the word I'm looking for, is completely out of nowhere and doesn't make any sense. I will say my best friend had a small surgery and the same sort of thing happened to him, and it almost turned fatal because of that. So I know for a fact that can happen. Like, it's not outlandish that a clot could kill someone after a surgery. That literally does happen in the real world, but it shouldn't happen to your main fucking character. Why would you do that to your main fucking lead outside of Dexter, who is the biggest fan favorite outside of Dexter in the show? Why would you kill her off screen after she got shot in the fucking stomach? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. There's a million ways you could have killed her. Or you don't have to kill her, but there's a million ways you could have and not do it off screen. That is such a slap in the face to Jennifer Carpenter, who did such an excellent job. It's such a slap in the face to Dexter fans who loved Deb. It's disgusting and it's insulting. It's absolutely pathetic. It's just, it's crazy. Like, yes, again, you could kill her. You could do all those things, but you could do it in so many ways that would have made it way more believable and more respectful to the character. And it was just boring up until that point. The entire episode was boring. There wasn't really any stakes. There was no, like, it factor of the season where it was like, oh, this is getting real for Dexter. Like, this is really becoming a thing. No, we're focused on Hannah McKay. We're focused on Evelyn Vogel. Then these stupid things happen. I'm sorry, I just jumped around a little bit, but seriously, the way they killed off Deb, it just shouldn't have happened that way. Like, she's just such an incredible character. For her to get killed off screen was just disgusting. And then also the fact that, and I kind of get it, but the fact that Dexter comes in there and pulls the plug on her is like, there is a little sliver of hope that she could come back. Why would you do that? Why would you do that, Dexter? You're not that dumb. Like, you're not that dumb at all. You could have done it a million other ways. Oh my God. It's just so, and then not even to mention that, the fact that after that happens, Dexter literally just walks out of the hospital with her body in front of an entire staff of people being moved because of Hurricane Jade or whatever it's called. Jade, something like that. The fact that he didn't get spotted as just a regular civilian wheeling out someone who was fucking dead in front of everyone. Then when they go outside and he puts the tarp on top of her like a dead body and there's everyone around him, but he just brings this dead body onto the boat in front of everyone. Who wrote that? Who thought that was a good idea? Are you kidding me? It makes no sense. It's pathetic. It's an insult to both Deb already and Dexter. It's so stupid. It's so fucking dumb. Like, oh my God, how do they do this? How do they write this? I didn't even talk about the whole CGI stupid hurricane thing that Dexter goes off into. Dexter takes her body in front of everyone like it's no big deal, like it's no problem whatsoever. He just takes her body and drives away with it in front of fucking everyone. Like, are you kidding me? We'll come back to that in a minute because there was a lot of other things that happened before that was even the case. After it is revealed that Deb was shot, obviously Oliver Saxon comes there and tries to kill Deb, but in the last nick of time, Quinn and Batista come in, save the day, and arrest Oliver Saxon, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I actually like that. But then they all go back to the police department. Quinn, Batista, Dexter, they're all back there. And Dexter just goes off to the prisoner alone in front of all the cameras, even when the police officer's like, usually we have a police escort come in with you. Do you want this? Like, okay, just click this button, whatever. He goes in for a sample, even though he doesn't need to, and he kills Oliver Saxon with the pen. Okay, fine, you kill him with the pen. You got to do what you got to do, but Dexter, are you that dumb? There's cameras everywhere. How are you going to get away with this? And the fact that there is video footage to back it up is crazy, but that's not even the crazy part of it. The crazy part is the fact that after Dexter gets away with killing Oliver Saxon in front of the police, he then is questioned by Quinn and Batista, who watched the footage, watched him kill him, then have a moment of just pure fine solace, then click the button, then pretend he's acting all shocked. Like, okay, this is being presented in front of two people who have personal reasons to believe that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, and you just write it off like they're idiots? That is so insulting. That is fucking crazy. If anything, because it's your last episode and I get Showtime wanted to keep Dexter alive, if anything, that should have been the aha moment for both Quinn and Batista to be like, well, one, Quinn should have been like, okay, maybe LaGuardia was onto something. This was a little crazy. I get his anger, but like, that switch was crazy. Maybe LaGuardia was right. Maybe there's more to Dexter than we know. And Quinn, who literally spent an entire season hiring a PI to investigate Dexter, should have definitely been like, oh, that's him. That's him. Oh my God, it's him. Like, the fact that that doesn't happen is a disgrace to those characters, because I really like Quinn and I love Batista. They're phenomenal characters, but it is insulting to them that they had to do that. That they had to just be like, yeah, I get it. You're fine. We got this covered. Go home. Like, you did the right thing. Blah, blah, blah. Like, we could play this off as nothing. What? This is what we spent 8 fucking seasons of a show building up to, and you write it off like these characters are idiots? At least, if you have to keep Dexter alive and you want to get him out of Dodge, you could still have them be suspicious and start this investigation. So at least you leave fans on this kind of gratifying thing where it's like, oh, okay, now they know, but now Dexter's on the run and they think he died. Like, okay, maybe I could see that being a way you end the show. Maybe, but even then, I don't think that's how you should have ended. This season should have been the manhunt of Dexter. It shouldn't have been the manhunt of Hannah McKay. It shouldn't have been all this drama with Evelyn Vogel, whatever the hell her name is. It shouldn't have been any of that shit. It should have been the manhunt of Dexter fucking Morgan against the homicide department, where he spent his entire career hiding his psychopathic tendencies from the place he works. That's a homicide department. Are you kidding me? This is how you insult your fans? Scott Buck, what were you thinking? You are an awful writer. Like, you're an awful showrunner, I should say. Are you kidding me? Now, I didn't even mention the end of this episode where we get Dexter go off with Dead Deb into the fucking hurricane, and they have this whole Titanic moment, like Jack sinking into the water, which, again, like, it's beautiful that they shared one last moment together. I get it, even though she's dead and all of that stuff. But like, really, Dexter had to go and pull the plug on Deb only to bring her into the water. Like, it just bothers me. It's not that he put her in the water that bothers me. It's just the disrespect for Deb's character that really bothers me so much. It's so bad, bro. Like, it's so fucking bad. And then at that, Dexter then decides to fake his death and go off into the CGI worst shitstorm I've ever seen. Like, the whole episode with the storm coming in looked fake. You could literally see the green screen on Dexter's hair. It's ridiculous that that's what happens. And just that's the way you end the show, by him riding off into literally the worst computer graphics I've ever seen, even worse than Toy Story. Are you kidding me? Like, how do you think that that is fair? How do you think that that is right to end the show on? What? My God, it's insulting. And then the whole thing where he's a lumberjack in the end, and apparently that's Oregon. How the hell did you get out of it? Not to mention that we literally saw his boat and all the wreckage. And even in New Blood, they don't explain it. How do you get out of that? What? You literally rode into a hurricane in the middle of an ocean and your boat exploded. Which also, to be fair, that also makes no sense. Wreckage from a hurricane shouldn't involve a boat exploding. What? And I know it didn't actually explode, but it was in like a million pieces. That wouldn't happen from waves. That doesn't happen. Like, yeah, maybe a rogue wave would take you out, but that's not a hurricane. You're not going to get like one massive rogue wave. It just doesn't make any sense. And where did Dexter go? He literally came off his boat, I guess, in the middle of a hurricane and swam in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to Oregon? What? Like, what? Oh my God. And I get it. They had to keep him alive, so they had him flee on the run. But they had him flee on the run for reasons? Like, really? They had him flee on the run because he wanted to save Harrison? Which I get. Okay, that makes sense. But there's no stakes for you to go on the run. It just felt so surprising and disgusting. And it just didn't make sense. Like, it would make sense to go on the run if Quinn and Batista were on your case. That would make sense. But the fact that after Deb dies, you're just like, I'm just going to ride off into the hurricane. Well, fuck you. Fuck you. Not Dexter. Fuck these writers. This was a bullshit, awful season. And this was an awful way to end Dexter for the real ending to Dexter. If you think about it realistically, yes, New Blood is the ending, apparently, to Dexter. I know there's Dexter Resurrection now, but New Blood is like the real ending, and I have a lot of thoughts on that, so definitely be subscribed for that because I will be talking about that. But this is your real ending to the main series, Dexter, and it was the worst episode ever. This was even worse than Game of Thrones. This was really fucking bad. Like, both seasons, if I have to compare, Game of Thrones season 8 and Dexter season 8 were both bad seasons of TV, but at least there were some like enjoyable elements of Dexter season 8, and there were some enjoyable elements to Game of Thrones a little bit in the first 2 episodes, but like Game of Thrones progressively got terrible as the episodes went on. Dexter was just like straight up boring, then stakes at the very end. And like the stakes weren't even for Dexter. And that's where it was so jarring and different. At least Game of Thrones, like after episode 2, just got progressively terrible. Dexter season 8 was bad. Like the plot points were boring. They didn't make sense for a final season. But like you could put all that aside and say like if that was just any other season of Dexter, it wouldn't be awful. But then the fact that the stakes just amp up in the last 20 minutes of the episode and then you have your conclusion is just fucking disgusting and it's insulting to the fans. And that's where I think the biggest problem with this season was. It was just everything was flatline, boring, pacing issues. Like it was all bad, but like, whatever. It's just, it didn't become an ending until the last 20 goddamn minutes of the episode because that's when the stakes come on Dexter. Like, fuck you. Seriously. That's ridiculous. It was awful. This was an entirely awful season. I still loved Dexter. This was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. The franchise will forever be in my heart, and you'll be expecting a lot of content on it on the channel because it's now like cemented as a great show. But this ending was disgusting. And it was so disgusting that I personally feel I could write this off as if it didn't happen. And that's kind of what New Blood was about. But in the eyes of many people, they fucked that up too. I have thoughts about that. We'll save it for the whole review because I don't know if I feel that way, but my God, this was just, it was so bad. It was so bad. I don't even know what else to say about it, guys. I've been ranting for 26 minutes straight. I hated it. I hated it. Horrible, horrible, horrible ending to a show I otherwise loved. Season 6 was terrible, but this was way worse. This was just pathetic. Season 7 was all right, so I could really only say season 6 and season 8 were the bad seasons of Dexter, and this one was just on a different fucking level. Definitely let me know how you felt about season 8 in the comments. I already know this isn't an original thought. Like, I know people hated this season. I get it. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's bring it to the comment section. And until my New Blood review and my Dexter series review overall, until those come out, I will talk to you later. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter New Blood, and I have a lot of thoughts about this one too, because this is the second time that the writers of Dexter had the chance to make an ending for the show. And yeah, a lot of people had a lot of issues with this show because of the way it stuck the landing, or lack thereof, didn't stick the landing at all. It was a very controversial season. I think the common consensus amongst people is that the season was fine. It was just the ending was too abrupt, and it was another example of a bad ending in the Dexter franchise. And I don't know that I agree with it. And before we get even any further than that, I already started Original Sin, so I know that this isn't the end of Dexter as we know it, which I think is actually disappointing for reasons. I think it's disappointing because they have two opportunities here. First, it was the faking of the death in the ending of season 8. Then you have in New Blood, you have like the actual death of Dexter, but then he was resurrected, and now we're getting resurrection. And we saw that in the beginning of Original Sin. We saw that he survived the shooting. And I know a lot of people saw New Blood 3 years ago when this came out, so they didn't have that luxury of watching Original Sin right away to see what happens. But I thought the answer was definitive, and I'm pretty sure Clyde Phillips went on record and said that Dexter died at the end of New Blood, but I guess not because of reasons.
I don't know. So I'm going to pretend that I didn't watch Original Sin already, because a lot of my feelings about this show, about New Blood, stem on not knowing that Dexter actually survived. Because in a lot of ways, this season 9 of Dexter, New Blood, was like an epilogue or a chance for Clyde Phillips to redo the ending that Scott Buck ruined. That's what the show was. I mean, they've gone on record. Michael C. Hall has talked about that, as well as Clyde Phillips and other people. So it's public knowledge that this season was meant to give finality. It was meant to end Dexter. But the outcry amongst fans was so spectacular that it changed their course. And now obviously they're doing Resurrection, which I think we all hope is the final season with a manhunt, like a real manhunt of Dexter, and we could put all this shit to bed. That's why before we even get into New Blood, that's why I'm actually disappointed, because this wasn't the final season I would have wanted for Dexter. Like, I would have wanted a Resurrection style manhunt or something like that. But with what they gave us, I'm actually okay with it. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. I spent already 3 minutes prefacing this. So Dexter New Blood picks up, I think it's 10 years after the events, the atrocities, I should say, of season 8, when Dexter faked his own death on the boat and somehow ended up in Oregon. But now he's in fucking Lake something, New York. I forget the name of it. It will come back to me. Iron Lake, New York. So now he's there. And obviously, I don't have a problem with that. I'm making it sound like I do. But it picks up 10 years later. He is in Iron Lake, New York, and he's living a totally different life under a new name, under Jim Lindsay, where he now works at a hunter's shop, something like that. I don't know what you call it, game sports stuff. I don't know. He's working at something like that, living a fake life with a girlfriend of his who is a cop. And that's where we pick up Dexter. He hasn't killed in that whole time. So he, under this new alias of Jim Lindsay, he is in many respects a new person in his entirety. And I have to tell you, I actually really loved this season of Dexter. No, I would never consider it to be something as good as the greats, like season 4, 2, 1, and 7 for me. Those are like the greats of Dexter. I wouldn't put it in that category because there was something really magical about every foundation that OG Dexter had, like being in Miami, even something as simple as the color grading, things like that. Those things really stood out to me about Dexter, the original show. So now seeing this in this new landscape, I think just naturally for me, it takes a step down because it's not that, but that doesn't mean it's bad, like at all. Like if you watch this and didn't watch any Dexter at all, this could actually stand on its own in a lot of ways. Sure, you would miss a couple Easter eggs here and there, but this would stand on its own as a really solid 10-episode miniseries for you to just pick up. Like, I feel like I could introduce this series to my parents who haven't seen Dexter, and they watch this and enjoy it. And I think because of that, I think that's a reason that people hate the ending so much, because it was a very enjoyable season of TV, whether it was Dexter or not. You put this in a nutshell and you pretend it's not Dexter Morgan and it's just its own story in and of itself. I think this season really worked. But given the context and given the fact that we waited 10 years, I just started the freaking show, which is crazy, by the way. I've been watching this show a month and I'm already at New Blood watching Original Sin. I'm exhausted. That's a lot of episodes of TV to watch. But anyway, the point I'm making is a lot of people waited 10 years, or they didn't even know they were waiting because obviously we didn't have New Blood at all. But after season 8, that horrible finale, people were just left in such a disgusted taste with Dexter. So they had a long time to wait. I didn't have that. So I'm kind of glad. I kind of forgot exactly where I was going with that, by the way, but I'm kind of glad that I picked up right now. But I don't know. I don't know if that factors into my opinion being different about this season of the show. So I'm jumping all over the place a little bit. The reason this season wasn't a problem for me, I think has to do with that is that I binged so quickly and it just feels all like one to me. And it feels like this is the true finale of the show. And
I understand people's criticisms. Like, this isn't going to be a review in my normal sense where I talk about the season. This season was good. It was a good season of Dexter. It followed a criminal, it followed Kurt, it followed that whole thing. You guys know the drill. You know what it was. I'm not going to waste your time there. But a lot of the reason people hated this ending is because we didn't get the manhunt of Dexter Morgan. And I do completely get that. I personally want that desperately. The closest we got to that was season 7, where Deb knew LaGuardia was onto him and all of that stuff. That's the closest we got to a true manhunt. And then I guess you could also argue that the second closest was New Blood, with Dexter's girlfriend finally getting on him for that. But I think the reason a lot of people have hangups with that is the fact that it felt very contrived and all of that stuff. We're going to save that for a little bit later. But the real reason is you set up all of these ways that this could end with a true manhunt. Like, obviously, we have Batista coming back into the picture, and just so happens that Dexter's girlfriend runs into him in New York, and then they get talking about Deb and, oh, what's his kid name? Harrison, and Dexter Morgan. And then it starts that rabbit hole. Like, that was a very contrived plot point. Despite I love seeing Batista back in the picture, it was just way too convenient, obviously. So there is that. But again, a lot of the reason people hate it is because precisely that it set up all of those ways that Dexter could get caught. Like, we have a perfect story. He's rusty. He does a kill. His girlfriend's onto him. His girlfriend finds out his true identity, calls in Angel Batista, but then the final episode ends with Harrison killing him. I get why that would piss so many people off, especially people who waited years and years to see this. But I actually, for what it was, considering, and albeit it wasn't what I wanted either, but for what it was, I actually did not mind it at all. I really didn't. I know that's a hot take. I know you guys already might be typing away out there that this goes against like how I felt about the rest of the stuff. But I really didn't mind this season. I didn't mind this ending. Yes, again, is it what I wanted? No, it's definitely not what I wanted. But with what we got, given the context, I don't even feel like I'm compromising my feelings to say I liked this. I just did. I thought it was a really good idea. Like, obviously, Harrison was still around. He was still out there somewhere. So was Hannah McKay. But it was a really interesting perspective to bring him back into this picture. And I did find it poetic that he was the one to kill Dexter, even though I guess technically he doesn't kill Dexter because of original sin, which to me is really fucking stupid. But he doesn't kill Dexter, or he does, I guess. And just in a nutshell, you pretend that this was the final season. If this was his death right then and there, no, it's not what I wanted, like I said a million times, but I'm okay with it. I am okay with it. I just thought it was executed really well, and I thought the season was a very interesting season. Kurt as the main bad he wasn't my favorite bad of any Dexter season, but I really liked the twist at the end that he kept all of his victims in that underground bunker in like a museum sort of way. That was really creepy and something we never saw in Dexter. It gave like Halloween, like Rob Zombie's Halloween vibes to me for some reason. It just had that right amount of creepy. And I think the setting also has a factor to that for me. Like it being in Iron Lake, New York, it being in this cold, desolate environment just added to this vibe of Dexter that we never saw before that was really fun. And I think that attributed to the reason I liked this season so much, but in a different way. Like, again, I can never consider this in the Dexter tier, like of the greats. But for what this is, this could really stand alone as a great story to tell. I just kind of wish you didn't have all that baggage of Miami that you can't ignore. And that's where a lot of people get mad. And again, even though I like this ending, I will say it is stupid. Like, you really should have had a manhunt season. That's what this should have been. It should have been early on that podcasting girl discovered, because obviously she knew everything about the Trinity killer and she knew who Rita Morgan was, so obviously she must have known who Dexter Morgan was. So when they met each other in person, it made no sense to me that she just didn't get it, especially how obsessive and compulsive she is over the stuff she does. I really feel like this season could have went that way, where the podcast chick was like, oh my God, you're Dexter Morgan. How are you? What? Why are you calling yourself Jim Lindsay? And then obviously Dexter's girlfriend gets involved and is like, excuse me. And then that manhunt starts really early on. Like if I was in the writer's room, I would have pitched this season entirely different. I would have kept a lot of its core elements there, like Harrison coming around, things like that. But I would have changed that one little thing and had it happen very early on. And then the entire, let's say it happened in episode 2, the entire rest of the season, those 8 episodes were solely focused on the manhunt involving Miami and him getting extradited back to Miami. But I guess that's what we got new Resurrection for. I guess that's what that's for. But I really think the only reason Resurrection exists is because in the eyes of the community, the writers fucked up the ending a second time. And again, I sound like a broken record, guys. I'm so sorry, but the idea that people hate this season for what it is, or the ending for what it was, because it didn't give fans that Dexter closure that satisfied a lot of people, even though I feel the same way, I can't say I agree, because at least, even though my feelings are different and I wish that we got like a totally rewritten version of the same like dynamic, even with that being the case, I can't ignore the fact that we did get the best of both worlds. The only thing we didn't get was a scene with Batista and Dexter after Batista had realized that Dexter was still alive and was the Bay Harbor Butcher. I really think if they just had that in episode, let's say it was midway through season 10 or episode 10, and Batista did come to Iron Lake and got to talk to Dexter behind bars and say, all this time it was you killed my wife, like all of that stuff. That would have been amazing. And I think it would have sat better with the fans if you just had that one little scene, or if you just didn't put Batista in this at all. I think it would have sat better. It wouldn't be great because a lot of people still wanted that manhunt. But personally, I think all you had to do was bring Dexter and Batista face to face for one scene to get that satisfaction that finally Batista and the crew, no, maybe Quinn there, something like that. If you had changed that one thing, I think people would have thought this was a great way to end the show. I really do. Maybe you have a lot of other reasons. I've seen, I forget the guy's name who did the hour-long review of New Blood, and I listened to all of his points, and they're all really valid. I completely understand why people hated this season because of what they did in the finale. I do. And I couldn't even imagine what that's like. Say you finished Dexter 10 years ago and you were waiting for a real finale. You get it and it wasn't what you got. I could only imagine that must have sucked for you. But the way I binged it personally, I did not mind it. Now I feel like it's forced that they're doing this resurrection thing. I really do. I'm enjoying Original Sin so far a little bit, and we're going to talk about that once I finish the season. But I don't know. These are just my thoughts. This was not the most concise review, honestly, and I apologize. You probably were expecting me to do my normal style reviews, and instead I feel like I was just rambling. But I feel like this is important because these are my honest thoughts of New Blood. Like, the season was great, but all that really mattered was the finale. And frankly, I didn't mind it, but I completely understand why people hated it. And I completely also understand at that why people didn't like Harrison, but I did. And I think if they ever go in a direction where Harrison slowly becomes like a Dexter, even though he already kind of is, I think he could stand on his own. That actor did a phenomenal job with him. So I don't know. I personally liked what we got. I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers of some of you guys who really didn't like this one, but I did. So that's my thoughts. I might come back and do another more proper review, maybe. I don't know, because I know this wasn't really like a review. But yeah, oh, and by the way, someone made a comment about this. I finally closed my freaking drawer. I didn't even realize it was closed in my season 8 review, or it was open in my season 8 review. Whatever. I'm like delirious. I've literally watched over 100 episodes of Dexter. I've watched 106 episodes of Dexter starting January 27th, and I'm filming this on February 27th. So I'm delirious. I'm glad I did it because I'm glad I caught up. This was a great show, but I've never binged something this fast in my life, and I feel like I'm going insane. So once Original Sin's done, I'm looking forward to waiting a few more months for Resurrection to come out. Jesus. Oh my Lord. But definitely get subscribed. We got a lot of Dexter on the channel coming this way. So yeah, with all that out of the way, let's take it to the comments. And until the next one, I will talk to you later. Peace out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Dexter Original Sin, and this one took me long enough. I know it's been quite some time since I said I started watching it and got this out, but I finally finished watching it, and the reason it took me so long, I'm going to be completely upfront about this, is I honestly had a very, very tough time getting through the first, I'd say, 4 episodes of the show. I will say, it got progressively better. This was one of those shows that the beginning few episodes started off in a way I didn't like and ended in a much better place. Frankly, if I didn't know I was planning this video and already committed to talking about it, it would have been one that I would have probably put off a bit longer, and had I not had this channel or something like that, I may not have even finished. But that would have been a real shame, to be completely honest, because honestly, it was pretty good, especially by the end. Over time, it got better. And there's a lot to attribute to that. There's a lot to attribute to both the pros and the cons of that to make up for what it was. So I'm going to try my best to dive into those in this video. I have a lot of pros, have a lot of cons, have some things that I didn't really like, but it doesn't really matter either. So I think I'm going to start with the pros and go from there. One of the first ones, and I think this is the most obvious one, is that it feels really good to be back in Miami Homicide. Even if it's not with our cast of characters, that environment is just so ingrained in Dexter culture that it being somewhere like in Iron Lake, like it was for season 9 or New Blood, as you know, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like Dexter, even though it worked. It's still just good to see this story set where it belongs to be set. Miami is the home for this, and it just works. So that's definitely a big pro. Another big pro to me is that we got to see, obviously, the development of Dexter through the eyes of him being young. Obviously, that is the premise of the story, so there's not much like crazy or mind-blowing about that as a premise. It's just, it is great to see. But another thing that I also really liked is that this wasn't just about Dexter. This was about Lauren Moser. This was about Brian Moser. This was about Deb's development. This was even more importantly about Harry's development, which I think is great. So overall, to start off with that, the Lauren Moser storyline was just really interesting, and it was really great to get background to everything that happened there, and seeing the events unfold the way they did was really sad, but it also made for really, really good TV. So I'm glad we got to see it. I don't have any complaints about it. It was fun. And that image of Lauren in the whatever you call it, in the canister thing, in the dumpster, whatever you call it, at the end when they pulled him out was just so sad, and it really stuck with me. It's such an awful thing to think about, what happened to really Brian as well as Dexter in there for 3 days. It's absolutely crazy, but that stuck with me. And overall, every time they cut to Harry and Lauren's story, I felt really enthralled. It was probably my favorite part of the show. Just seeing those flashbacks and seeing what you obviously know it leads to was just something really special to me, and something that I definitely really appreciated as well. Now, the next thing that I think is a pro, but it's just as equally a con, is Aaron Spencer as the villain. It was definitely really fun to watch him, for sure. Like, I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. It was fun to watch him, and it was fun to see where that story went. We're going to save the cons of that for later, because there are 100% cons of that. So I'll just leave it at surface level. It was fun to see. It was interesting that there was a sergeant who actually turned out to be a killer. That was something cool. Another thing that I really liked that was a big pro for me was the complexity of Harry Morgan, because obviously we knew that he was a complex character. Like, that's not even up for discussion. It's something we're well aware of. But seeing it play out and learning more about him, especially the fact that they kind of retconned Evelyn Vogel this season, because a lot of the flaws and a lot of the reason for Dexter being the way he was, obviously, was from Harry. But what we get here is interesting. We learned that Harry was a really bad father and had another kid before Deb and Dexter, and that he essentially killed the kid accidentally, of course, by not being there for him. And then you get all the complexities of him cheating and the affair with Lauren Moser and the other people that he's, worked with in the past and things like that. And it just makes you realize
he's kind of a piece of shit, but you also understand him too, and you understand that he's trying to do the right thing. It really is, that's, I think, one of the best things about Dexter overall, is you get that moral ambiguity of, well, technically, Dexter's doing a good thing, but also in the same vein, he's doing a terrible thing by being a serial killer. So it's like that weird mix of both, and Harry serves this interesting purpose in the story where he's with the law, but obviously he wants to raise his son to the best of his ability, and it puts him in this really interesting predicament, and I think it just works really well. I thought that complex storytelling for Harry was great. It really was. I really enjoyed it. Another thing I really enjoyed, small detail, was young Batista. He was like literally so wild on, so spot on, I should say, wild on, Jesus. He was so spot on. Like, it's crazy. He had everything down, la pasión, like everything. All of it was down. The only thing I don't understand is how can he wear some of the outfits that he wears in an office? Like, he wears outfits with like the wife beater tees, the guinea tees, I don't know what you call them. That's what we call them here in New Jersey. I don't know how he gets away with wearing those in an office like half out and things like that, but whatever. That's what it is. Another thing I also really like kind of ties along with Lauren Moser, and it's Brian Moser. I'm glad that towards the end of the show, we got to see a lot of him, and it was also really interesting in retrospect that we got a lot with him just in the backgrounds. Like, he was the killer that Dexter was looking out for and all of that stuff. And it just worked really well. It naturally flowed. And I even liked how it ended, where we see Brian watching all of them celebrate at the end of the show, I guess you could call it, unless they do a season 2, so season 1. I don't know, but I thought it worked really well. And I really think on its own, we could really have a spin-off, I guess you could say, focused on Brian Moser, and it would work really well. It'd be something I would definitely watch. This laid down that foundation really well. And I already kind of mentioned it in the beginning, and my last really big pro is just overall Dexter in general. It worked, and I do think the actor who played him, I think his name's Patrick something, I could be wrong, definitely let me know in the comments. I think he did a phenomenal job. Like, through and through, I think he just did a good job. So when I get to the cons, I want you to know there was a lot of things I liked. If I could sum this up, those were things I liked, but there's a lot of cons too, so like, it was good. It just wasn't great or anything. That's how I feel about it. It was better than not having something, but it wasn't anything that I was obsessed with or anything like that. And that's mainly attributed to the cons, which we're going to get into right now. Being number one, there were at times in this show that it literally felt like the parody of Dexter. I don't know how else to word it, and I don't know exactly one moment to pinpoint on that feeling, but there were some moments. And I think the easiest example to give, and we're going to talk about it too in a second, is the introduction, where you have Dexter like looking like this, like into the camera, and then you have his like wink at the end and all that stuff. When I saw that play out for the first time, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, I really was. It was just very bizarre to see. And also it was cringy. And to be honest, one of the things that bothered me with that is the creepy expression on Dexter's face, and then the chomping sound effect, like that meme chomping sound effect when they're eating in the intro cutscene. Those things just threw me off right away. I know they're small details, but the only reason I bring up the parody point in this and then talk about the other things is because I genuinely feel like there were moments in there, again, can't pinpoint exactly where, but there were moments in these episodes where it just kind of had this like tone that felt like a parody to the show. And not that I have necessarily a problem with that, it just wasn't the tone that I would have expected from a show of this sort. Dexter's always had its funny moments for sure, but there was a couple times in here where it just felt like it was like making fun of the premise overall and laughing a little too hard at it, which I didn't like. And I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. If you do, comment a dolphin again. I know I've done that one before, but comment a dolphin, okay? If you know what I'm talking about. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're shooting what I'm loading, you know what I mean? All of those things. So there's that. Now, I promised I would save this one for the cons as well. Another big one for me was Aaron Spencer. As much as I said I also liked it and was entertained by him, I just feel like there was so much there that was just so unbelievable, whether it was him being the sergeant that he is, or lieutenant, or whatever you call him, and he is also a killer doing all of these things. No one's going to question him, and I understand that they had Harry the whole time being like, oh, I've worked with him, 30 years, like, he would never do something like that, but, like, I don't think it was that far-fetched to think. And honestly, when Dexter started to put it all together, Harry should have believed him. I didn't like the way that played out. I didn't really like him as a villain. He kind of was like a Scooby-Doo villain to me, even though I can honestly say I was entertained by him. And obviously, his actor does a really good job in anything he's in, so I think that attributes a lot to it too. But at least it's just like, it wasn't believable. And then the fight scene that happened between Aaron and Dexter in the last episode, I think last, maybe second to last, whatever. That whole fight scene was absolutely ridiculous. Like, obviously, a guy like Spencer should have 100% beat the shit and possibly killed Dexter. He had the upper hand. He was stronger. He was the way he was. Dexter was new at his game and all of that stuff. And it made no sense to me at all that Dexter got that upper hand. And let alone when he got that upper hand, he then tries to save the kid by doing that like crazy breath work that he did to go under the water and save all. It just didn't. It felt like too superhero. It felt like action, but this is Dexter. This is a serial killer. Like, it just felt really dumb. And I think that's the only way I could describe the cons the most. I know I've only given like 2 examples, but those 2 examples felt really fucking strong, and the show just seems to like insist on itself. I don't know how else to put it. It just, I can't say I enjoyed it because of those cons. Like, the things that held it back for me, which I'm really struggling to put in words, were something that just gave cringe to me. Not that it was all bad, because it just wasn't. It just gave a lot of cringe in the areas that I thought it could have done better. I loved that Michael C. Hall was narrating this. I even loved the young actor who played Dexter. I loved the one who played Deb. I loved the one who played Harry. I think they all did a really good job. And I know this is a horrible side note, by the way, but as I'm thinking about it, Harry's recast was strikingly different. Not that I usually have a problem with this. This is like in the category of things that I don't like that don't really matter. But Harry, the character, looks so different than the original and sounds so different than the original. And I don't know about you, but it kind of bothered me. His skin is tight as fuck. That's a weird OCD thing of mine. His skin was tight. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about that. I just had to say that. I know that's stupid. We're going to get back to the real things now. But I don't know. The overall, I just kind of feel like this show, yes, fun, but it insisted on itself like a little too much in a way that threw me off, that I'm struggling to put into words. It wasn't a fault of the actors. It was definitely a fault of the writing, but I don't know how to pinpoint where. Again, my take is that it's better than nothing. It was fun to watch, but like, it wasn't anything special. It was pretty good. That's the only way I could put it. It was pretty good. I'd love to hear from you guys what your thoughts were on Original Sin. I'm sure there's a lot in there that I missed in this review. I'm just trying to brain dump here, and this is what I brain dumped. This is what pooped out, okay? So yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And be sure, if you don't mind checking out the channel, you can become a member. We will do member shoutouts, exclusive things, and all of that. Look forward to seeing that there. It'll be linked in the description. Feel free to start a healthy conversation down there. All of that. With all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. Until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the reviews of Dexter Resurrection through and through, you know it is no spoiler that Resurrection is my favorite season of Dexter. And there are a lot of reasons for that I want to discuss in this video, because guys, okay, just before I preface anything and actually start talking about my overall feelings of the season, I do want to say, I understand that I binged Dexter. I started watching Dexter this January. It was the first time I ever saw it, and I watched it within a month's time. So the binging experience is very different than the week-by-week experience. I do get that, and maybe that's why I loved Resurrection so much, is because I finally got to watch a show that I thoroughly love in one week-by-week sort of routine. That could be it. But also in the same vein, I just think there was so much on paper here that I genuinely liked. This video isn't all positives, because despite this being my favorite season of Dexter, and despite this being one of my favorite seasons of TV, there are definitely some concerns that I think are 100% worth talking about. But let's start by obviously going over all of the good. This season, it just did something that was just, you can't capture it all the time. I said it in my last 2 videos. It's liquid dynamite. And what I mean by that is it's like It's like lightning struck in a bottle. Dexter's formula is something that I didn't think we'd be able to repeat because Miami Metro just did it so well, especially with the ambiance, the music. Ambiance and atmosphere are like the same things, but that whole vibe of original Dexter is something that I didn't think was possible to replicate. However, I do think they genuinely did it. I think them being in New York City and Dexter being revived here and coming to this place where you could essentially be a ghost. I mean, I live right outside of New York City. So for me, walking around the streets, no one acknowledges you. It really is true. It was like in that episode where Vinny, I think his name is Vinny, he was in the trunk with Dexter, and Dexter had that like thing on that made his face. I think they're called pantyhose or whatever. And someone walked by and Dexter's like, I love New York. Honestly, that is just so real. That is such a real vibe because people do not pay attention here. That's why things like that almost mass shooting event that happened recently in New York City at on 53rd Street happened is because people just ignore people walking by. It's not crazy to think that people aren't paying attention because they're not. They're just trying to get to their place. They're in their heads. They're listening to their AirPods and all of that stuff. And I love that that is the environment we're setting up for Dexter because though it's not Miami Metro, it is such a transient area that people aren't paying attention. It feels like such a natural place for Dexter to go. And also, it's just visually so much cooler to tell a story in this city, in the concrete jungle that is New York City. There are so many opportunities and so many, again, opportunities for really good shots throughout the show. And it's something that we've seen, whether it's something like Harrison in Central Park with Elsa, which we're going to talk about Elsa later because I have issues with that, or whether it's Dexter in episode 10 on the Hudson River in the boat, right with the Statue of Liberty in the background, things like that. There's just so many good opportunities that give it its own vibe that have that also like warm, good feeling that Dexter did have, at least with the Miami Metro story. Because I thought that was great. Something about, the South Beach vibe of Miami in general was so strong. I didn't think we'd be able to replicate that, but I think we definitely did here. But obviously that's not the only thing that you could deliver on. The only reason I bring that up is because there's also some sentimental value for me. And I think a lot of people, because New York City is like the hub of the world. It's where everyone goes. And for me, I live here. So it's like when they're taking the F train, for instance, or whatever. And like, there's the scene where it's like, stand clear of the closing doors, please. Like, I hear that every day. Like those little beats for me, and I'm sure it's the same for people who live in Miami. Those little beats really add to a story in ways that just make it feel special. Obviously, that's not everything, because if the show sucked and it was set in New York City, I wouldn't be talking this highly of it, but that was just an added bonus. The reason I'm talking so highly of it is because they actually were able to capture what everyone loves about Dexter in a season that didn't feel cheesy, didn't feel cheap, didn't feel overly contrived. There were certainly some moments, especially in episodes 1, 2, and I think 10 as well, where there were contrivances, and hopefully I remember to cover that later in the video. I'm just going to leave that earmark in there now, so I'm trying to talk about that. But there was overall that classic feel of Dexter where he's back as the Bay Harbor Butcher. And as a matter of fact, that reveal later when he kills the tattoo killer Neil Patrick Harris's character, and he admits himself that he is the Bay Harbor Butcher and uses the blood slide again, that was one of my favorite moments of the entire show so far, just because it's great to have that vibe back again. I missed it so much. I know you guys missed it so much as well. And it felt genuinely really, really great to see. So obviously having that vibe back is a big thing. Having that vibe in a new area too, like the aesthetic vibe of it, is also something big for sure. But it's not just that. The story that they told this season was just liquid dynamite. I keep saying it again, but liquid fucking dynamite. That's what it was. Prater and all of the villains that came this season were really, really good. Albeit there were a couple moments in there that I did feel things were moving a little too quickly and rushed. But now that I've seen the entire season, I can't say that I think that way. I think there are things that were rushed. We're going to get to that, I promise. But not as much that. I loved the idea of there is this rich billionaire guy who is psychotically obsessed with serial killers to the point that he brings them around to his mansion, pays them good money to have a safe space to be, and that being like a buffet for Dexter to do what he does best. I think that was just absolutely magnificent to watch, see unfold. All of the words that you can imagine, all of them. It was great from start to finish, with the slow introduction to Charlie and then Leon, to then meeting everyone like Mia, the tattoo killer, Gemini, Al, all of those characters, and all coming together, and Dexter just loving it. Like, I love even the little details of that, where Dexter had to pretend he was red, so he had to pretend he was a vegetarian and slowly adapt in and go from there. Those details were just so great to see, and to watch it unfold in a way that almost gave off like Epstein vibes. I don't know how else to describe it, but like this secret society of people, this elite society of killers doing these things, and it sounds outlandish to the public. And then like Mia hanging herself, but not actually hanging herself, things like that. Like, it just gave a very like Epstein-esque feel, which I didn't think I'd ever talk about in a review of Dexter, but it kind of did. And it especially helped that it was in New York City, which is where also Epstein resided or whatever. Like, those little details, I'm not trying to make this about Jeffrey Epstein, but those little details definitely helped it feel real. It made it feel like it was a part of our real culture. Like, you're walking down the streets right now in New York City. Obviously, I know Dexter's a fake show, but I'm like, oh, Dexter was here. Like, you know what I mean? That's a little cringe. But just being honest, like, that's the feeling it gave, because it did feel real. It felt ingrained in our universe, and I really did like that, especially with the addition of when they get to Prater's mansion, and he's talking about like Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, all of those people, and then integrated into those people is new fictional characters like the Bay Harbor Butcher, like the New York Ripper, like things like that. I just like when shows intertwine that reality, and I think this just felt like such a natural place to like reboot Dexter, is this buffet of serial killers. And I love where it's going to potentially go in season 2, where there's even more of that with the files and all of that stuff. So that's exciting to see, but it just set the perfect stage to bring in a lot of great actors in these cameo performances in ways that didn't feel over the top and like, whoa, it's Neil Patrick Harris, or whoa, it's Peter Dinklage, or like, you know what I mean? It didn't really feel like that, because these actors are just so good. So as soon as you watch these scenes unfold, you kind of forget that Peter Dinklage was in, now of course I'm forgetting his name I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, in Game of Thrones. Like, you forget about his character in Game of Thrones. He's no longer that guy. He's no longer Tyrion, I should say, that's his name. He's no longer Tyrion. He is Leon Prater. That's because he's a great actor, and that's because it makes it easy to not like typecast him in those roles. I feel the same about all of the actors here. Neil Patrick Harris, very, very natural feeling. David Dastmalchian is a very natural feeling actor. Kristen Ritter is a very natural one. And Eric Stonestreet also is just, they're all very natural. They all have had very distinct roles, but they do just such a good job in these performances that I'm willing to like forget who they are. Not willing. I forget who they are because they're just that good of actors. And I think that really matters, because if you had certain other actors playing this, obviously I'm not going to name names, but if you had certain actors that didn't have the same chops, I don't know that it would have felt that way. You know what I mean? So it's really great to see they casted this show very well. So that whole storyline, that A plot, I guess you could call it either the B or A plot, because Harrison and him are also a B plot, and then the C plot is Batista, or one or the other. Like, I don't know which priority level is which, but that whole setup is really great. But then I already kind of teased it. The other setup that's really great is Batista this season. And despite the fact that, major spoilers, as you guys know, Batista died at the end of this, I personally feel satisfied and feel like we actually got the manhunt of Dexter Morgan in a way that, with all the characters we have remaining, that I really care about. Like, we don't have Deb, we don't have Dokes, we don't have LaGuardia, we only have Batista, Quinn, and Masuka left. And if there's one character, or if there is one way, I guess I should say, that I wanted the manhunt to go, it would be for Batista to find out in a heartbreaking way where he's hellbent on revenge. That is exactly what we got. So I have no reason to complain, even if he died. I heard the writers talk about in an interview after episode 9 aired that they were concerned that if they kept Batista around for at least a season 2, or maybe a season 3, then his character, who is beloved in the community, would have started to become annoying. I don't know that I feel that way because I do think it was a slight missed opportunity for them to, like if they had kept him around, I think there was more that they could have done with him. There was more conversations I think Dexter and Batista needed to have. But in the same vein, I am shooting what they're loading, picking up what they're putting down. I get what they mean by that, because if you give too much of that, then it becomes annoying and then it becomes repetitive and people don't like that either. But I do definitely think that this is going to set him up to become like the Dokes of the show, wherein now Batista, a lot of people will think he was gone too soon. I agree with that. I can't dispute that. I definitely understand that. But that being said, I'm content with what they did, and I'm kind of over the whole manhunt idea now with Batista, because really, who do we have left? We have Quinn, who kind of knows about Dexter, and we have Masuka, who, God, fuck, I do not want to see him being the one chasing down Dexter. He should just go continue to seek out Batista's OnlyFans. Like, I'm not, I'm not interested in that. I love Masuka as a character, but that would not be satisfying. The Quinn, maybe, but also Quinn knows about Dexter. Quinn's obviously self-defense. I'm just joking. I just watched that scene back and I was thinking how crazy that scene was, but like, he obviously knows that Dexter has that side to him. I mean, Batista and him visually saw it, but also Quinn killed a guy too. Like the weight of it being Quinn is not nearly as strong as Batista. And now that Batista's dead, the Miami Metro story of the manhunt is kind of dead with me too. I thought I'd have more of a problem with that than I do, but I don't. Because honestly, what we got this season was good enough on its own. The standoffs they had, the arguments that Batista and Dexter had, the heartbreaking moments that Batista and Dexter had really shined here. Yes, I think we could have used a few more of them, 100%, but the ones we did get really stood out, I should say, not stuck out. And I thought it was just overall well. Yeah, sure. There were a couple scenes, like I said, that I wish we got, like maybe Dexter behind bars and them having a deep conversation about the whole thing, and Dexter maybe opening up about why he did what he did and why he is the way he is. But also in the same vein, the way they paid it off at the end, where Dexter admitted to him that he didn't kill LaGuardia, he didn't kill Dokes, he didn't kill Deb, was really good in and of itself, and their conversation there is good. So the B plot being Batista on the manhunt and it ending with his death, while a little repetitive to the idea of anyone who gets close to Dexter dies, served the story well, and also was a creative and unique sort of spin on the idea of anyone getting close to him dying. Because this one, Batista is, if there is one person, Batista is the guy that Dexter cares about the most, especially out of everyone in Miami Metro, aside from Deb, really. So for this to happen, for it to be like his brother, there's a lot more different emotional weight there than there was with Dokes, who hated him, with LaGuardia, who was flirty with him and then hated him. You know what I mean? This is just a different vibe. This was his best friend, by the way, his best friend discovered that after years of thinking he was dead, declaring him dead and all of that stuff, discovered he was alive, discovered he probably killed LaGuardia, and that he's been hiding the fact that he's been the Bay Harbor Butcher all along. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different weight there than it was with the others. You could call it repetitive all you want. I don't think that's the case. So again, we have two things, A plot, B plot. We have A plot being Prater, B plot being Batista. Both of those were absolutely incredible. And then the other thing, the biggest thing that surprised me about this season was Harrison. Harrison, even though for me, in New Blood, he was never a character that I disliked. I liked Harrison the entire time from start to finish of the show, but this season turned him into a fan favorite character of mine, up there with, I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to say up there with like a Deb, but like, you getting what I mean? Like, he is a very solid character. I love what they did. I love the regression they made of his character from New Blood, despite me actually liking what they did with him in New Blood. I like that it became more of a father-son bond and an extension of Harry Morgan in this season. I absolutely love that. And speaking of Harry Morgan, James Remar in this season was actually one of my favorite parts of this season. I didn't realize how missed he was in New Blood for me, but like Deb, as much as I love Deb, her being the surrogate for James Remar as Harry when Dexter was like talking to the ghost, it just didn't work for me. I loved Deb, so seeing her back was good, but like she was just so angry in those comebacks and screaming at him and all of that stuff. It didn't feel like Dexter. And that's kind of scary because these actors are getting old. What if they retire or God forbid something happens to them and like they can't do these scenes anymore because Remar is just so fucking good as Harry Morgan. It's absolutely insane. I loved every addition to him, even like as far as in episode 10 where Dexter's walking by to go down and get Prater and he's like, get that fucker. Like those little things mean so much. And it being Harry and also being the trio, like being Harry, Dexter, and Harrison was just so genuinely so wonderful. Something that I loved. Like all of those pieces are just so great. And I honestly, with Harrison Morgan, I could watch more of him now and feel like I'm pretty sure at the time they were considering doing a Harrison Morgan spinoff. And now after seeing season 1 of Dexter Resurrection, I'm kind of convinced that they could make something work because they really rewrote his character in a way that I find it to be impossible to have a real problem with. There were a couple moments where it was just a little bit like, okay, I'm going to forget about everything that happened now, like unconditional love, which is a little questionable. But again, it's a father-son. He was lacking his father the whole time, like all of that stuff. So I kind of get that. But in general, I liked it. So you have 3 big things going on. Like I said, you have Leon, you have Batista, and you have Harrison. And all 3 of those aspects worked. Every single one of them. Now, with all of those pros, because this was my whole pros, with all of those, I do genuinely think this was the perfect season of Dexter. Again, that's not without its flaws, which we're about to start to talk about, but just to put a bow on this, with all of those flaws, any cons I have are significantly outweighed. Like, let me look at the frame. If this is the pros, the cons are like here. You know what I mean? They're just so night and day different from one another that I don't really care, but these are things that I can't ignore and things I want to talk about. So the first thing in the cons that we're going to talk about is the fact that the show did in some ways have a pacing problem. It started out really solid. It started out a little slower than what we got, but it started out really solid establishing everything. Then once the killers started to come into the mix, it started to really pick up the pace. We got 1 kill every episode, which on one hand of the pros, I thought was really good. But on the other hand, while I was watching it, it definitely concerned me a little bit because I was like, well, why are they doing all of this now? Like, what is this building to? Obviously, I know we have to get to Prater somehow. I get that. But in the end of the day, like, things just moved so quickly. And there wasn't just a problem with the Prater storyline. It was definitely a big problem with Blessing Kamara. Blessing was a character, even though I did enjoy him, I found him to be a little annoying. But the reason I found him to be a little bit more annoying than anything is it's extremely hard to believe, even in a city where you can meet people pretty quickly, that Dexter would find this guy in a your car or whatever they call it instead of an Uber, find him in an Uber who looks just like the dark passenger, and then out of nowhere, they just hit it off so well that he invites him to a party and like days later, he's moved into his basement. That was just way too unbelievable. Like, no matter what you say, that was way too unbelievable. I've been working with my coworkers where I work now for 2 years, and it took like months for us to form a very solid relation. You know what I mean? Like, or like just coming to a new area and meeting people is not that easy. But I get it. They had to serve the story, so they had to bring him in. But that's where we do also get into another con is Blessing Kamara. Like, I liked his character. I did. But they showed too much of him, and it just became that he was a red herring. Like, it genuinely was, because everyone started to believe that he was not the Bay Harbor Butcher, Jesus. Everyone started to believe that he was the New York Ripper, or that he had a dark side, or that, like, something was going to happen to him. But nothing did, so they just wasted a lot of screen time on him, which, again, not exactly a problem, because I did enjoy the character. He had a sense of joy to the show that I really thought was needed. He was a good addition in that regard. But I think to all the moments like Prudence dying and that there being like 15 minutes of screen time of them just talking about the mom and like what it did for him, all to amount to nothing. Like at all. Like what arc did this serve? It really didn't serve any. I guess the only thing you could say about it is at the end when Dexter's reflecting in episode 10 that he's saying like he needs people like Blessing in his lives to be more human. But dude, he just met him. Dexter's also part psychopath. Do you really think Dexter cares that much about Blessing? Like, let's be real about that. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know that's been a general consensus amongst the community. But it is true, and it's nearly impossible to ignore. You spend so much time with this character all for what? Like, I genuinely can't figure out what you spend all of that time for. It just doesn't make sense. So that's one of the big cons for me. me. Another one of the big not a big con, but definitely worth talking about is Elsa. It's the same sort of idea here. Elsa was a character I thoroughly enjoyed in this show. I thought she was great, and I liked every addition they had with her and Harrison. It helped Harrison become more human. It helped him become more just like a good character that we could follow. And it seemed like they were setting up a true love story there, which I still think there might be something on the table there for that. But it seemed like they were setting up something really solid for the two of them, all for her to just completely fucking disappear. Like, what happened to her? Like, she was in a lot of the episodes. They were showing a progression. They were showing Harrison try to kiss her because he likes her. And then she backs off, and then he just fucks off and meets Gigi. And then him and Gigi just start fucking, and then Elsa is just left out to dry. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you spend so much time with Elsa if it wasn't amounting to anything? My only thought as to the reason they're doing that is that she is going to be one of Al's victims because they showed her ponytail quite a few times. Because otherwise, what the fuck was the point of all of that? What, so that you could have a little sub-story with Vinny, the landlord, and that almost got Dexter caught in the kill room where it happens episode? But like, why? There's like a million other ways you could have done that. So was the only reason for her being in this story was for that? Because if so, that's fucking bullshit. Because I actually liked her character. Not that I dislike Gigi, but the forced replacement of Elsa for Gigi was just, I don't enjoy that. I don't. And then meanwhile, while we're getting that replacement, we're getting more sex scenes that I don't want to see in Dexter, to be honest with you. I have no interest in seeing Harrison eating out Gigi like happened in episode 10. Like, why should we watch? Why do we need to see that? Number one. Number two, all of the scenes it just takes away and takes to the runtime. Like, what were they building towards with Elsa there? I just don't get it unless it's the fact that she is probably going to end up a victim of Al or something like that. I just genuinely don't know what they're doing. So that's another con. Another con, and this is, I think, my last con, to be honest, but another con to me is the contrivances of this season. It started in the first episode with the quick dismissal of everything that happened with Logan and Angela and how obviously it was self-defense yet again, season 8 Quinn. It was self-defense that Dexter in his cell would shoot Logan for God knows what reason. And then for Angela to backtrack and just get out of Dodge. That didn't make any sense to me as a story. It just didn't. But obviously, because everything else was so good that came after it, everyone just kind of ignored that. But it didn't extend to that. It also extended to other things like how safe Dexter was in episode 10 or even episode 9 when there were ample opportunities or situations he could have put himself in to get him killed or even get caught. I mean, his fingerprints, his DNA is all over that crime scene. Yet for some reason, it's just glanced over. Maybe they left it that way so they could set it up for season 2. But as of now, it's like, how could you get away with this? How could you steal Leon Prater? That's like saying you stole Elon Musk's boat and get away with it. Like, those little details are just a little too convenient for me, for sure. But again, those are really the only 3 complaints I have of the show. There might be more I'm missing. I'm doing this video in one take. I'm already at 25 minutes almost on this video. So I'm really just brain dumping about all of my feelings about this season. I am going to be doing a tier ranking of the episodes of this season. I'm going to be doing an updated tier list of all of the seasons of Dexter soon. I'm also going to compile all of my reviews into one long video so you can sit back, relax, and watch if you want. So I got a lot more Dexter on the way. Those are just the Dexter Resurrection related content, and I have a lot more of that too. But also, I'm going to be doing more video essays with Dexter. You guys have really helped grow this channel so much through Resurrection, and I can't thank you enough for that. So be sure to get subscribed if you aren't already. We are 1,000,000% going to be covering Dexter Season 2, Dexter Resurrection Season 2. And also, we're going to be talking about other shows too. Pluribus is right around the corner, which is Vince Gilligan's new show. Walking Dead Daryl Dixon is coming out. We got a lot in the pipeline, and we're just getting started. We really are. So tonight's the night, and it's going to happen again and again and again. All right, that was a little corny. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to follow me on X at Jerry's_takes and on Instagram at Jerry's.takes. Don't ask me why there is a difference. Let me know your thoughts on this on this season down below. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Okay, so those were my overall thoughts on Dexter. I love this franchise. In the short amount of time that I've been exposed to it, it has quickly become one of my favorite, if not my favorite, franchises to ever exist. I'm so excited for Resurrection Season 2, and we are just beginning. So be sure to get subscribed if you're not already, because we have video essays coming out, more reviews, speculation, all the things for Dexter and Dexter Resurrection going forward. So with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.